I wanted to do was do a follow-up to the video of me speaking with Denise, what was that, last week? And there were some things that people have been asking me through emails and stuff about this whole thing with the Anunnakis is really confusing people. And maybe that's going to be some of your questions today. But the whole, and I alluded to it because I said there was 2 timelines, and that's all I kind of said. It was at the very end of that. And I'm referring to the, I called it the Diary of a Walk-In. I don't even remember what I called it. But the 2 timelines is what makes it so complicated. And I've listened to other people to see how they explained this. Just other people were like sending me YouTubes to look at. So I just wanted to see, did anybody contradict what I was saying? And nobody did contradict it. And they alluded to it too. And you would only catch it if you understood this whole big story that nobody's talking about because it's so complex. And that's all they said. It's complicated. And left it at that. And then everybody just didn't even know what they were talking about. So they moved on. So the story with the 2 timelines with the Anunnaki is and why now I'm saying they're the good guys, even though I wanted to announce them because everybody knows they're associated with this Planet X phenomenon. So, you can't not talk about them. But the 2 timelines have to do with the future coming to the past, which is what I'm saying. These are the future Anunnaki, not the present Anunnaki, who are still in existence. Because it is like those movies where the old adult is talking to themselves as the little child in the same scene, in the same timeline, But yet, the future...
So you're saying we are the Anunnaki?
Well, I'm saying they are absolutely... They called them a rebel division of the Pleiadians. And the Pleiadians used to be bad guys too. And that's where the whole thing, I'm saying I'm a walk-in, I'm related to the Pleiadians, I'm the Pleiadian as a boots-on-the-ground person, but I'm not psychic. I just have to clear this up. I have veils, like anyone on Earth does, but yet I know things, on this other level, and they do communicate with me on this other level, but not in words. So
how does that, can we talk about that for a minute? How does that work as far as you know things on another level, and how is it you know them, and how is it they communicate?
Okay, so then that goes kind of back into the whole how did this began thing, because the walk-in phenomenon, which people are still saying more and more are coming in, and the whole reason people are walk-ins in the first place is because they have to shortcut the whole growing up as a baby thing and becoming who they're going to be and doing their purpose. So they have to come in as an overlay, is what I've heard other people say now, as an overlay to an existing soul in an existing body. But a lot of times there is an actual switch. And I still have full emotions, for my family members. It's not like I don't feel things on that whole human level. That all still exists. What changed was suddenly everything changed. Where I lived, how I dressed, what I was doing on the planet, why I was here.
What do you mean where you lived? How did that change?
Well, because I was in Connecticut until I was 29, and it happened in 1993. And then I was selling mortgages. We talked about this before. And, I went on a whitewater rafting trip, and that's where this change happened. And, I just knew suddenly, it's a download. I suddenly knew that I'm doing the wrong job. I live in the wrong place. I'm wearing the wrong clothes. I have my hair wrong. Just all of a sudden everything was wrong. And I immediately had to correct it. And even relationships, though, as much as you have human relationships, there's still going to be a change in who you get along with and who you don't get along with, because now you have a whole different mentality. But I think it has to do with a frequency level too, as far as and that's how I'm able to know things, is because I jumped in a dimension or two that day, because suddenly nature was different. I had been cruising along the river with everyone else, and suddenly trees were just a whole different phenomenon than they had been. They weren't just like, oh look, there's a tree. That's what I noticed right away, was that the trees were just, I don't know. I don't know how. It's the 4th dimension, I guess, is all I can say. 4th or 5th.
Wait, so the trees are in the fourth or fifth dimension?
Well, you know how, if you ever, did you read the Celestine Prophecy? Did you read that? It
Long
was
time
like in
ago.
the early 90s.
Yeah, I read it. I saw the movie, but it's been a
Oh,
long time.
yeah. Well, and that was what one of the first books I read back then that kind of explained a little bit like, oh, okay, other people know what I'm talking about, was um you become aware that they have an awareness. Let's just call it that. Like I became aware of the trees as an awareness presence that had to be protected, that had a voice, that was complaining. I became aware of the earth, even that the earth was, I mean, that whole first year, what I did was take that trip to California and back, which is what I was writing about in that the Diary of a Walk-In, was my time on the road. And it was the earth just communicating what was happening to it, what used to be. It was kind of like I was, since it had just happened, the walk-in thing, I was being given a tour. I was being given a tour of the earth. Look at what has changed. And it was kind of like, it didn't used to look like this, is all I could think of while I was on the road. Like I was kind of looking at it as a Native American would, being like, what has happened, with all the trash, with the traffic, with the paved roads, with the cities. I mean, that's
How was the earth and the trees? How did they communicate?
the earth. You have that book. Did you happen to read it?
Your book? I didn't read your book. No.
Okay, because I was very emotional on that trip. Like the earth was like screaming, like, help me. It was like, and that's why the whole reason I came was to help the earth. So the earth was really speaking loudly, and of course this is not in words, it's in thought waves. But it was really, it was it was just crying. It was crying and pleading, help me. And that's all I could hear. And all I could think of the first year, which was in like 94, was I need to get out of here. I was in Connecticut, and as beautiful as Connecticut is, it was too crowded. I was like, I need to go far away where there are no people, and it is all just nature and woods, and no one is around. And I craved it so much, and I ended up moving to Montana in the national forests because it was just a pull and a longing. And I think, I had to do that. I had to do my incubation time, is what that kind of was. It was kind of it was just my training. Those first 2 years were training for this work that became the rest of my life. But it was training, getting used to the guidance. I had a team that I had no idea of prior to that. There was like 5 of them, and they were just constantly showing me things on the road trip. Like bumper stickers that would song lyrics, billboards. I mean, anything, was license plates. Like they were visually showing me things that I took pictures of, that's in that book. But and the whole thing was I was just a passenger observer. They were the ones in the driving seat and telling me where to go and what to do, and that it was all going to be magically worked out with no logical or rational explanation. And I was a girl at 29 who had no building skills. So part of it was supposed to be, we're picking somebody who knows nothing and proving that we're going to build this house in the woods in Montana, and I just knew it would be done. I knew I would find the right property with a limited amount of income, just crazy, crazy things. And it was, it was a magic carpet ride is how I described it. It was pure flying fun. And they were with me all the time. But then there came the time when the training was over, and then I had to leave Montana, and I was forced to leave Montana. An incident happened, but it was them saying it's time to go. But an incident happened with a neighbor. I was in the middle of the forest, but a neighbor did shoot one of my puppy dogs who was 6 months old, and it just kind of closed the thing up. Okay, like this isn't fun anymore. It started to snow. I was running out of time with the cold temperatures, trying to finish building certain parts. And it was just them. All of a sudden they were like, okay, we're done. Time to go. Go get a U-Haul. Let's pack it up. And that's how they work a lot of times. It'll be like periods of lulls where you're like, okay, what are we waiting for? How long is this going to go on? And at that time, things were happening kind of quickly. So you know, I expected things like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? You know, because it was always like that. Like, okay, now we're moving here. Now do this. Now go. You know, and it was like immediate and sudden and definite. Where now I've been in this phase since that all ended. You know, especially feels
So
like.
you went from Montana to Florida?
No, I went back to Connecticut with my one dog. I had two dogs that were born on the property the day I had bought the property in Montana, and now I only had one. But we traveled back to Connecticut with all my stuff. It was in October, and then of '95, and then I was like, "Are you kidding me? We're going back there? You know, what happened to all this fun?" I was like, "Am I gonna have to get a job again?" You know, it was just like the whole thing just went quiet. And I had been writing in notebooks, like many 5-subject notebooks. So, and I had never been allowed to read what I had been writing because it was always in the middle of the night. And one of the rules was don't look at anything because that, you know, it was all supposed to be fresh, 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 like nothing reflecting on what I had already written. So I never really got to look at anything until I went back to Connecticut. And then I was only there for a year. But during that year, I just retyped the notes I had taken. And so I kind of got to relive, you know, the experience, but they had left. But really what I learned was they hadn't left. They had just left. And this is literally what it felt like. They had left from inhabiting me with me to now they were stepping back, but they were still there. It was in a wider periphery. And so then I slowly got to feel, oh, okay, you're still there, because they were training me.
When you say they, who are they?
I'm going to say there was 5. There was 5 guides, angels, helpers, you know, whatever you want to term you want to use.
So,
but Pleiadians, they were Pleiadians.
They were Palladians, and you see them as angels?
I'm just saying that, yeah, they are the same people that everybody thinks of as angels with wings. That's what was in the Zachariah Sitchin books, in the Sumerian tablets. You know, they all had wings on them, you know, and that just became our mythology for what an angel was, you know.
Okay, so the archangels that we think of, or all the religions talk about, and angels in general, they're basically Palladians?
Well, there's other races, and I can only speak about the ones I know that I'm part of their family. And, you know, so I can't like give you this whole overlay, but there are other ones that are helping, like the Syrians or the Arcturians or the Argathons, who are inside the inner earth. You know, like some of them went underground during some of these past episodes.
Who are they inside the earth?
The Argathons, Arghathan. They're in the middle earth, they call it, or the inner earth, which really is a different dimension, but the portals are at the North and South Pole. But you enter through a time portal to get there. It's through a dimension portal, I should say. A dimension portal. So it's not like we don't have lava. We do have lava in the inner earth, but there's the portal, the gateway is, and you know, our governments of course all know this. In Iraq, you know, that's where the whole story began. That was the Garden of Eden. So that's why there's so much fighting in Iraq to control the original portals in Garden of Eden, you know, territory. There's so much over there. And that, I guess, is where the story's going to end on the earth. But
that's where what?
You know, this whole conclusion is going to end, which we're approaching, supposedly. You know, I mean, So this has started in the early 90s for me, and in the beginning, you know, so that was like 22 years ago, 25 years ago. Well, 93, so we're almost at 24 years ago. So in the beginning, though, you know, I thought I was leaving then. Like I thought, oh, they've come to get me, and I'm leaving. You know, we're taking off from Montana. You know, that's what I thought. I was so ecstatic during those times, you know, but then it was like, what? You know, that's what I said when we had to go back to Connecticut. I was like, are you kidding me? And then from there, you know, I wrote the book in Connecticut, took all that time, and then I moved to Florida from then in 96. And you know, and then in Florida, I started trying to sell that book, and it was just like, they kept telling me this is way ahead of the time now. We are not there yet. This is too far ahead. This is a future book. But I did what I could, and then things kind of opened up again. But it was there was a waiting period that went on. It was just there's been this waiting period. I've always known that the time would come when what they had me doing in Montana was training for what time is now. I was training. They were telling me there wasn't going to be money, so I had to figure out what I needed to buy so that I never had to go to the store again. So I had things like a truck that didn't require electronics to fix it. I had, that thing that goes under the truck, the jack. It was a large, a regular garage high-scale hydraulic jack, though. It was like a professional thing. And I had all these manual tools to fix the truck if I needed to. And I had, manual tools. Like I went and studied how they harvested wheat, and like
What?
they harvested wheat with one of those sickles. And, I went on a tour of how to do that. And I had a horse, and that was going to be my transportation, was the horse with the sleigh. I had a sleigh for the winter, and I had just gotten a cart, or I was about to get a cart for the summer that the horse would pull, because, I was being told there's not going to be gasoline, so you're going to have to go back to these transportations. And I had a wind generator I was building for my electricity, and this was in the early 90s, so that nobody was, a little bit of Mother Earth was starting to come out. Mother Earth came out earlier, but it was pretty brand new. And other neighbors, though, on my road had water wheels, hydraulic water wheels they were building. And because we had no power on the road, there was no hot water, phones, electricity, any of that. And, and then I had to build a greenhouse because I was in Montana. So I was going to have pipes that ran hot water under the roots so that I could have a longer growing season in the winter. And, because the growing season is only 30 days long, all you could grow basically is radishes. So I was being shown, and I had never gardened before. I had never built anything. I had quadrupled the size of this little barn I bought. That was, it had a wood stove in it, but right away I just got rid of the wood stove and just adjusted to the temperature. And this was in the winter. I spent the winter there, so I had no windows, no screens. I just basically was camping all year long, kind of thing, in a barn. But and I kept telling people in my family, I don't know if this is for everybody, but this is what they're having me do. And this talking like this was a new language for me, but I had no way else to say it. And they were telling me, tell people so they see what you're doing, so they know you, they know you're not capable of building something, or that I've never done this before. And they wanted that to be part of the story, that isn't this miraculous that I got out here, I found a property, I built this house. Of course I did hire some people to help me. I went as far as I could, but I got it done. I did have to pay people to help me with the roof and everything, but I had skylight windows, French glass doors. I had a redwood deck, in the middle of nowhere. They're telling me you're wasting your money. This is like hunters, only come out here. But
do you still have the property?
No, it sold in '95 on my birthday, which was December 22nd, which was another like miracle. I had spent all my money to return to Connecticut because I wasn't working anymore. So, and it sold on my birthday, and it sold for $22,000, and 22 is always like my big number. Or no, it sold for $27,000. I bought it for $22,000. So there's a whole story with that. But the point is, though, after this training time, when I said they were in me, so it was like a big party all the time. Everything was fun and easy. And then they moved out of me, and then it was like, it was devastating. It was like a death. It was the worst depression death. It was like, where did you go? And then writing the book, the only thing about writing the book, because I was typing on a word processor. Back then, computers weren't really that common, and I had to retype it by hand, and the printer printed one page every 5 minutes. And that book was 500 pages. So every time I re-edited it, I had to reprint the whole thing. It just took forever, but that was the whole point, was to give me something to do to keep me busy so I wouldn't notice them tiptoeing away, which is what they did. And then, once I
You would
noticed
you wouldn't notice what?
them tiptoeing away, I'll call it, they quietly snuck away,
Oh, I see.
moved out of the body. And then, like I said, I got used to them. Oh, okay, you're still here, but you're out here, because they wanted me to get used to more not depending on them for the guidance, to make my intuitive abilities stronger, to feel them from farther away and still know what I had to do. And then over the years, they just every so often would do that. They would move a little further back and a little further back until, now we're at the size of the practically the universe, but bigger than our solar system, and that's how far away they are now. And now I'm comfortable and I know the whole way it works. And so, but the thing was, I always felt like I was dropped off and they left me here back then in the early 90s when they left, moved away. I felt like they dropped me off. So why I'm so excited about Planet X returning is because I definitely feel a connection with that planet, where I feel like this is them coming back, and now we will reunite again, physically though, physically. So
Okay. I've got a question with that part. They're supposed to come back, um, but they're coming back in conjunction with the whole money system falling apart.
yeah, so like I said, I'm not psychic, but I feel things, I feel as time goes along, I can feel so far out. And of course the big thing will be when they finally do tell me, okay, move now, go, and that's how they'll do it. There will be not too much warning, there'll be inklings of it. But so far I'm still in Florida, and I'm not, I am doing some things, clearing out some things. That's what I'm working on now, but not too strongly. But so, what was your question exactly again?
How does it unfold as
Oh,
far
with the
as,
money, with the money.
well, not just the money, but they're part of it.
Yeah, their return with the money. You were saying, how does it coincide with the money? So, so the whole plan. Okay, so let's go back to the whole big picture again. The whole thing was, they were saying the timeline going forward, like let's just say the normal timeline going forward, which of course time doesn't really exist in reality, but on Earth we have a linear timeline. So in this timeline we're in right now, if they did not come back and interfere, and of course they can't interfere unless they're physically here, and that's the whole point of walk-ins. They figured out, oh well, what if we, put people in volunteers' bodies, which I was definitely a volunteer at those years. I definitely begged to be used before this happened. But so then they figured, okay, then we will be physically there, and I call myself boots on the ground. So they're like air control, and I'm boots on the ground, because they can't. There's a law, they can't interfere unless they're physically here, boots on the ground. So what it has been, though, in the timeline before this kind of thing happened, if we kept going along as we are, we would destroy the Earth. We would use up all its resources. We'd probably kill ourselves with a nuclear war, make our population sterile with the GMO foods and vaccines and whatever else. And, people thinking they're doing that because they're trying to control the population, and they were part of that. In the original timeline, the Pleiadians were the bad guys, because that's what I'm calling that's when I put the connection. Oh, you were the Anunnaki bad guy Pleiadians, so they were the Anunnaki bad guy
So
Pleiadians.
what's the definition of a bad guy?
Somebody so the humans on the Earth in Monsanto, that everybody's like, oh, they're just doing this for the money. Like, that is totally not what this is about. It's not about profit. It's about, they're working with these. Okay, so let's go on this original timeline with the Anunnaki level consciousness, let's call them, but they're actually physical beings in space. And again, I don't want people to think there's not a high level creator God. There is, but this is just playing out the game they're just one step above humans in a way. And we of course are genetically created by them, by mixing their DNA with the apes. And that's what we are. We are part Anunnaki, We are part ape. That's what we are. All humans. And that's why we live like we do and not like the Native Americans did. That's why we build technology that pollutes and destroys the earth, because we're not native to this planet.
So what are the Native Americans if they're not human?
They are the indigenous, and there's others, the Aborigines and different other cultures. That's why they still exist in that same state. When they find them in the middle of the Amazon unchanged, and they're like, how could you be existing on the planet at the same time we are, with all we've created with technology and everything? That's why, because we are Anunnaki plus ape, and they are the original Earthlings. We are not the original Earthlings. We are a hybrid.
Okay.
So that's why we exist with the apes. The apes are still here. We didn't evolve. The indigenous people are still here because they were not mixed with the Anunnaki DNA like we were. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, that's what we're doing. So we're part Anunnaki destroying the planet. And the Anunnaki are they are called the rebel Pleiadians because, of course, the Pleiadians have an enormous population, and there was a section that went off and wanted to do this game with Earth and brought life to Earth. They actually were seeding Earth. But anyway, so.
And that game went awry, or they just.
Well, no. So on that timeline, right, they're just not like we are now as humans, just being careless, thinking we can do all this genetic manipulation and it's not going to affect anything, that we're not connected with the resources we're polluting and using up. I mean, look at Rio right now,
But if you're a higher being, wouldn't you know that coming in? I mean, this can't be the only planet they've populated or colonized.
Because of free will, we're allowed to do whatever we want on Earth. Earth is it's a unique planet.
Right, but if we're part of that higher realm, why would?
So this is what happened though. So then on that timeline where we're destroying the Earth, using up the resources, polluting, controlling the population through these sterility procedures, people's sperm counts are going down as a population. Women are less fertile, almost, a lot of young girls now can't get pregnant. And what they didn't know, they thought, this is just going to happen on Earth. What they didn't realize is it would eventually reach its way to them in the future, like maybe in 1,000,000 years from now, or, whatever, 700,000 years from now. Some point in the future, it reaches them, and it makes their planet sterile on the Pleiades. And it makes.
But how could they not? I guess that's my question. If they're so evolved, how do they not know that?
Well, if they were so evolved, they wouldn't have even done this in the first place, because the whole warring thing with the countries warring each other and the religions warring each other, that's like all the different, leadership of the Anunnaki, just having their game play out, but using humans to do it, so it, like, no highly evolved person would even be doing wars at all.
Right, but you're saying, some of the reasons for those wars are to look after the.
Iraq. Well, yeah, they're competing. They're fighting over that territory. I mean, yeah, so they're
not. Why
that,
Iraq and why not the North and South Pole if those are the entrances for the other?
That's where they landed when they first came. They settled in Mesopotamia, in Iraq.
Right.
Didn't used to be called Iraq then. That is where they first landed with their rockets, which we have now. I mean,
So the people that are at the center of the earth, or people, whatever you want to call them, they were here before the Anunnaki?
No. So this is, like I said, hundreds of thousands of years later that it has affected their planet now, and their species is about to go extinct. Their planet is about to be destroyed in this timeline. It's so selfishly now it's affected them, and selfishly they've had to learn this very, very hard lesson, like whatever you do is going to come back to you, everything is connected kind of way. And they've now learned, they've evolved, and now they know, now they're on the good the good guy side, because now they're different. They've evolved, they've gone up dimensions and frequencies, and they have a higher view. So now what they figured out that they had to do was come backwards in time, back to the point in the timeline where things really started to go really, really bad, and it was going to become that track that was almost going to be irreversible once we really firmly set foot on this path. And that is, in the 90s, there were things that were going to happen with nuclear war in the late 90s, and some other big things were avoided. And so what happened was souls started coming back in droves, which increased the population to the swelling point we're at. But now that has been accomplished because there was enough souls at a higher vibrating frequency that it changed the frequency of the earth when it needed to. This is what we talked about in those original interview of the Diary of a Walk-In YouTubes. There was a window of opportunity to change the frequency of Earth, but they had to bring in souls that weren't here because the ones who were here were never going to change it. And now that phase has passed, which ended with the 2012 time frame, now all those people, let's call them the lower vibration people, now they're all going to be leaving the Earth because, first of all, we don't need that large a volume of people anymore, and the negative ones are not, they just can't physically be in the same space when the Earth evolves to the higher frequencies.
So originally you talked about this and you said the higher frequency people were going to evolve, they were just going to leave. But now you're saying that the lower frequency people are going to leave?
Yeah, so that's what, even in that thing.
So what changed between that first part and now this understanding?
Well, again, I can't really say that for sure, but that's what Denise is saying. And so Denise is a psychic. I am not a psychic. Denise does definitely have the capability to communicate with those Pleiadian guides in words, where they're telling her, which is what kind of where that was starting. We had a prior conversation where they're telling her they're going to be physically talking to me, where I'm not trying to guess what they're doing and feeling what they're doing. They're going to actually tell me what I'm supposed to say to people publicly like this. They're going to actually start giving me instructions. So she's been saying this for a couple of years. And so it's getting closer and closer now. And she's saying, in our another conversation, she said that would be in about 6 to 8 months. So in that last conversation on August 3rd, I said to her, well, why can't we just, that's where that conversation starts. I said, why can't you just tell me what they're going to start talking about? Because every time she thought it was so great to just be able to tell me they're going to physically be here. You're going to see them. They're going to communicate with you. And, she thought that was the end of the story. And I'd be like, okay, but why? Why would they be coming now? What is happening now that they have to bump it up to that level? Something must be changing. And she was like, oh yeah, I didn't really think of that, but so that's where we started that conversation. I was like, what's happening? Why can't they at least tell you what they're going to be telling me? Why do I have to wait 6 months? And that's where, she didn't know. So she's, I started saying, well, is it because of Planet X? Which, that gets into that whole thing, that conversation. But because Planet X, several years ago, they had me just speed read 8 books in the series, like back to back to back to back to back. I mean, I couldn't put them down. And then, so of course, after you read that series with Zachariah Sitchin, which starts with the 12th planet, and they had me read it. And I had looked at those a few years earlier, and I just looked at them, and they didn't really appeal to me or interest me. I mean, the subject matter did, but when I started reading, they're very detailed, because it's his deciphering what was on the cuneiform tablets. It's very detailed.
It's his deciphering of what? What is it?
The Sumerian cuneiform tablets.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like 20,000 of them, and he undug them. He was an archaeologist and a historian. There was nothing New Age about it. But in the stores, they have them under New Age. But it was pure archaeology and his ability to read what they said, which is, so he had just published it all, what was in those books. And, a lot of it had the parts that are in the Bible, but it was way more than what was in the Bible. So it told like the beginning and the end. It didn't just have a section of the story, like where did, well, I'm not going to get into the Bible, but I was aware of the Bible. I did study the Bible, probably, actually when this walking thing started, I took a discipleship course in the Bible. Like that was one of the things they wanted me to do, was take a discipleship, become
Who'd you do that with?
in Connecticut. That was another thing that started the whole thing. I used to be Catholic. First thing they did is said, start going to other churches and, look at other churches, like broaden yourself, don't believe what the Catholic story is. And it was the Baptist church that was the one that was the most genuine at the time, that, like the Catholics, they're so closed. They're so closed-minded.
How are the Baptists?
Baptists were at least, saying words out loud, like, I don't know. The Catholics don't talk much in church. Nobody really looks at each other. I mean, they turn around when they shake their hands, and then that's it. Have you ever been in a Catholic church?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my, I had these brand new feelings when the whole thing started in '93. I wanted to talk about God because, that was my only reference, and Jesus was my head lead guide. There was 5 guides plus Jesus was the head lead guide. And so I just looked at it as Jesus and the angels, but I didn't learn.
So do you look at it now as Jesus is one of the Palladians?
Well, yeah, so I learned his real name is Sananda, and he is definitely a Pleiadian.
What is it, Sananda?
Yeah, Sananda.
Okay.
And
what is it? I'm sorry?
What?
What's it mean?
I don't have that right here. I did look all that up at one point, the meanings and stuff. But the Anunnakis are the ones who actually came up with the term Pleiadian, and the Pleiades was Anu, Anu, the head guy. He's the one who actually, and Enki was a scientist. He's one of the 2 sons. That's the whole story of the Anunnaki. He's a scientist. He was the one who created man out of genetic splicing with the DNA. So, and he's the one that people say is Poseidon in the Greek mythology. He's the water god. Ea is his other name. Ea, whatever. And that's where the word earth comes from. It was named after him. So, So anyway, on that one timeline, let's just go back to that. Like I said, they destroyed everything, and they learned, okay, great idea, but this didn't work, and we're about to.
Now, what did they destroy? You're talking about they destroyed Earth? Or they destroyed something else?
They destroyed Earth, the human race, and themselves. It's because we are them. We are
right in that one timeline. So that one timeline is
it's playing out now.
Okay, so that we're in that timeline, yes. And this is that timeline, yes, that we're living in.
That's why it's so urgent for them to return as walk-ins now, or anybody in other races who wants to come in and help enter this timeline now from the future, to come backwards into this timeline now and fix where we can fix things, which, I mean, I've done things on my small level, but, I don't see how, but, the population is changing. We do have organic food being sold in the stores now. There are those community-supported agriculture gardens. A lot of the newer generation is all doing that, growing healthy foods.
Right, but if this all goes bad, the economy crashes and they show up and pandemonium takes over and people jumping out of buildings and soldiers shooting each other, and, how does that help anybody?
So those are all the lower vibration people leaving.
Yeah, but we can all be lower vibration. We all have the good and the bad in us. Can't we? If somebody's got a gun on me and I have a gun,
all I can
I'm
say
probably
is,
going to try to shoot him before he shoots me, no matter what my vibration is. Just
do
because.
Do you have a gun?
I actually. I'm going to take the fifth
one. All right,
we
won't say that. But see, that was one of my things in Montana, was should I get a gun? I'm a girl living by myself in the woods.
I mean, I'm basically a pacifist, but I'm not an idiot, you know. And it's like
No, but this is what my conclusion was. And again, I was preparing. There's not going to be money, so either I stock up on all this ammunition, which other people in Montana definitely were. They were definitely loaded with guns, and that was when Waco was happening and Ruby Ridge, and the Oklahoma City bombings were like the next year. And so they were all on Montana in vans driving around, handing out videotapes of the Clintons when Bill had just become president, January 1st of 1993, and they knew all about his cocaine smuggling in Arkansas as a governor, and now he was president, so they were all freaking out trying to get him impeached and revealing Hillary and the Rose Law Firm. So, and the black helicopters were a thing then, which, and the FEMA camps. So they were trying to tell everybody, look at what's going on, and it seemed like it was going to happen in the 90s. And then this was the Montana people. And so I think that was part of my reason, not just to be in Montana, which I consider like one of the last wild places left on Earth or in America, but it was to, connect with these people to open my eyes about, things that I kept. I kept the videotapes. They were handing out stuff about the Federal Reserve and how, crooked all that was. And,
right.
And this was in the early 90s. So now, now it's really happening, though. See, this has been such a long plan. It's been since the Rockefellers, figuring at least over 100 years, if not 100.
Okay, so you're going to talk about a plan that involves the Rockefellers. What plan are you talking about? The plan to do what?
Yeah, so at that time in Montana, I learned about the plan called Operation Garden Plot. And
Garden Plot?
Yes, Garden Plot. And what it was a plan to get, so consider us in the 1800s. Everybody was kind of homeschooling their children, raising their food, having guns, protecting themselves on their properties. And, they were a family unit. And then along comes somewhere the Rockefellers got involved, and they started coming up with this Operation Garden Plot, which was a plan to separate the children from the parents, and to even separate the parents from each other by starting to raise inflation, by making it so that they couldn't afford to stay on their own properties and grow their own food anymore. They had to actually go get a job. And then it wasn't enough for just the man to get the job. Then they raised inflation even more. And then it was like, okay, now we need 2 jobs to stay in the same place we're at. So then they had to separate the mother and the father, and the husband and the wife, in other words, had to, over time, over decades, they, because of inflation, had to get 2 separate jobs just to keep up. I mean, who would be willingly working, really, if, they could have this happy home life instead? I mean, yes, the whole women's lib thing happened and all that, but, really it had to do with inflation. And then they had the public schools, so then they were controlling what the children were learning now. They could indoctrinate them the way they wanted. And then they even created happy hours as part of this Operation Garden Plot. The happy hour, so that when the people, like the man, let's say, did come home from work at the end of a 40-hour work week, which then increased to even more than 40. It went up to like 60 hours because inflation kept driving costs up, so they had to keep working longer hours. And all of this working was not just to separate people, but it was also so that they couldn't think. They couldn't have time to have independent thinking. It was to keep their minds, focused on a task, whatever their job happened to be. And so then when they were out of work, they didn't want them to still have independent thinking, free time, to actually become aware of what was happening. So then they created the happy hour. And then they wanted them to get drunk after work and take home the 6-pack and, let's have these. And this was all part of Operation Garden Plot. And then, probably even the football thing became a thing, a drinking event. Like, they definitely encouraged alcoholism and consumption of alcohol and being drunk and happy hours to keep everybody dumb and, intoxicated, which is what they even did with the Native Americans, giving them alcohol. That was like all part of that whole plan to inebriate them, so they couldn't be functioning anymore to resist. So alcohol has been a huge thing of the plan. And again, this is all in Operation Garden Plot. So then they even called it They called it the Quiet War because no one knew it was happening. They
The
called it
quiet what?
Quiet War.
War?
The Quiet War with silent weapons because no one knew this was happening. And they started changing the food supply, basically, in the 80s, really. But and then the genetic modification came up, so we got more sophisticated. And because I guess it's almost like, they had to amp it up because the population was still growing, and with the vaccines, making people sterile with those, and then trying to spread the diseases, which is what they did with the Native Americans with smallpox. That's how they destroyed them. So they spread. They tried with the AIDS virus, they tried with the Ebola, Zika, I guess now is the new one, because if it's even done with mosquitoes, they're still saying that's not even sure if there's a connection, but mosquitoes are the number one best way to spread something if you're going to do it. So, but and so then on that timeline, like I said, things ended up coming back at them. They thought they were doing this to someone else, but it ended up affecting themselves. So then, like I said, through whatever methods they had to, through counseling and therapy, they learned how wrong the whole thing was, and they grew in enlightenment, and now they're the good guys in the future. In the future, they're the good guys, not in the present. This is why
I'm saying. Okay,
that's why it gets so complicated, because
it doesn't seem like anybody's a good guy these days. But anyway,
because it's two timelines that are going to be overlapping, because you got people like in those movies coming from their older, higher self wisdom backwards to when they were still, doing all this destruction. So that's why I think with the Anunnaki, there's going to be remnants of those present time ones at the same. I don't understand this all, I have to say, but I'm definitely part of this future one. That's all I'm saying. And the Planet X approaching is holding the future ones, is what I'm saying. Even though I've heard other people say, beware of them, whatever. I mean, that is not what my feelings are. And for me, it's I can feel them. I can, I don't have the I'm not psychic, but I can. This is what I've been waiting for. This will be the closure of my mission, to reunite on the timeline with them again, where now they're coming back to change the timeline. So, what I've been trying to do is educate people about organic gardening, eating better, cleaner, healthier, with the herbs, detoxifying people, getting the toxins out so they could raise their vibration so we can meet, in the middle, raising vibrations and frequencies to help like lift the earth, as if, we're all attached with balloons on us, trying to help lift the frequency all together. And the more helium you can put in your balloon, the more you can be a helper. And the way to do that is, the higher vibration foods, the essential oils, of course, not the ones that say for external use only, though, which are, you have to get like doTERRA, in other words. But so that's the part I wanted to clear up from that original one, that I wasn't saying, because it was just a conversation I was having in present time with somebody, but people listening in wouldn't know why I would be excited about the Anunnaki returning. And I don't even call them Anunnaki anymore. Now they're just pure Pleiadian. So that's another thing that's changed. They're not called that anymore. They're called Pleiadians. But because everyone is going to associate Planet X with them, I had to like refer to them in that way, but now they're not even called that anymore.
Okay. So when this unfolds, and you're saying it's going to unfold in the next 6 months?
Well, that's what, so through, research, because I have to, like, they tell me things are happening, I feel them happening, but then I want to go confirm it. Like, well, let's see, where is anybody picking any of this up? They found a disc, which, what's his name? Fletcher, I forget, it's Dan Fletcher, I think. He has a video, a DVD you can buy, and he's done like 20 hours. He's condensed it down to like 4 hours, 2 DVDs. But on there, he talks about this disc that was found, and it shows the way that every time this returns, every 3,600 years, the moon is in a certain position, the Pleiades are in a certain position. It's a crescent moon type thing, and based on where everything was on this disk, which was, they dated it to be 3,600 years ago, they were able to show that every time it returns, the moon's in a certain position, which can only happen, I guess, on the spring equinox. So that's why I said, it's going to be a March, April, whether it's this coming one into 2017 or March, April of 2018. But I really feel like it's this coming one. So that's kind of what I was asking Denise, are you able to confirm that it might be this one? And people are definitely seeing this planet. Have you seen it on any YouTubes?
I haven't looked for it. Yeah, the Planet X you're talking about?
Yeah. It's definitely.
So that Planet X is.
It's in between Pluto and Saturn right now, I think.
And so you're saying it's what, a spaceship?
No, it's 5 to 7 times bigger than the Earth.
Okay.
It's a planet, but every time it comes around, and this is part of the binary solar system we have, which other galaxies all have 2 suns, but it rotates in a different 3,600 year pattern. It returns back around every 3,600 years with a second sun, and other planets are there too. But this particular planet has the ability, though, in Zecharia Sitchin's books, every time it came close enough, though, they were able to leave the planet on a shuttle craft and just transport over to Earth, which I'm sure they can do through dimensional time, but this is like in physical time space, So, and every time they were able to do that, they brought new growth to Earth in the past. Like, they started us out, instead of being nomads and just hunters, they showed us how to plant. They brought corn to the planet. They brought sheep to the planet. They brought dolphins to the planet. All those things, that's why they call corn, the food of the gods or something like that. And now corn is the big GMO crop. But, so they brought things, to help the human race. Every time there was a jump in technology, that came from them. It happened like every 3,600 years. You can kind of go back in history. And that's what Zecharia Sitchin does in his books. He shows those leaps we had every time they came back around. So they're able to physically come here whenever the planet is close enough and orbiting the Earth and the sun, because it'll loop around the sun and then go back out. And when they come, they stay for 200 years. Normally, it takes 3,600 years to get here, and they stay for 200 years. Which I didn't exactly know that, but Denise kept saying that she felt them staying for 100 or a couple hundred years, and I did go back and look at some things, and it does say that. It says they're here for 200 years. So this time, though, is different now, because this is the future timeline coming backwards, catching up, so this is new space now. We're changing the timeline. But, I mean, it was tried. I guess this has all been preparation. So the thing about the elections, though, is I really feel Hillary is just a super, super evil person. And she's going to be the head of this whole evil path that explodes in a way that we can't reel it back in. But
so you see her as more evil than Trump?
Trump I see as an idiot. I mean, I get that he's able to make deals and he's good in New York and he's a deal maker and he's good at negotiating, all that stuff. He's not a politician. I'm not saying, it's in a political system. It's just hard for him because everyone's badgering him from all different directions, and the media is so biased against him that, it's, I don't even know how he's not quitting.
Okay, so whoever gets elected, let's talk about
Hillary is just pure corruption, though. I'm even thinking she's part AI, which is artificial intelligence. I see her, like the seizures they keep showing her having, and different, like I was watching some clips where she actually freezes on the podium, and there's this doctor guy, he's part of her entourage, this black man who's a physician, and he carries around an EpiPen with him all the time so that like she can freeze. They show her freezing on the podium, and he has to come up to her and go, it's okay, just keep talking, and then she becomes animated again. So I think she's like and this is like, they show him, that you can hear him saying this very clearly in the microphone, and he's like, he goes around her like, keep talking, keep talking. She's like, okay, so we're gonna keep talking now, but she actually has a freeze, and I think she's part AI. And this is, the Terminator movies, there's 5 now. I really think that is going to come to pass. And the artificial intelligence is the other thing we're up against, like in the Terminator movies where they had to go back in time. There's so much with that movie series that is similar in a way. So I think Hillary is part artificial intelligence. I'm going on the record as saying that, and I was trying to see if anybody else is picking that up, but she's like a robot now. She's part robot. That's what I'm saying.
It's interesting because they what is that TV show they do about I don't know, some TV show they do, and the woman in it, it's the president and
oh, Madam Secretary.
No, it's a different one.
I don't know much.
Anyway, it's a Netflix thing, but the woman in that used to be married to Sean Penn. She was in Forrest Gump and all that. Anyway, she almost looks like that. I saw the last episode of it. She turned and she got this real stoic thing, and she's like out of character and stuff.
Yeah, and then Hillary said she short-circuited. They're making a big deal about that comment, and that's kind of what kicked this whole thing on. That, like, because the artificial intelligence is growing, that nobody realizes how much so that it's happening.
I'm sure that, yeah.
And there's that whole thing about Missing 411. Have you heard all that book series?
What is it?
It's called Missing 411.
No, what's that about?
It's about young boys that are all, what they have in common is they have brilliant minds, what I've heard. They have brilliant minds, and they're hiking in national forests and things with people, or even some of them are happened at nightclubs where they go into the bathroom and they don't come back out, or in the woods though, like in daylight, they just disappear, and then they're found like weeks later dead with and this is happening all over the country. I'm not sure if it's all over the world, but and what another person said, who was Barbara Marciniak, she said this, she's a Pleiadian channeler. She said that they were wiping their minds clean for artificial intelligence, these brilliant minds of these boys. Specifically, it's like boys like age like 4 to 27, or, some young age like that, and they're taking their minds because we're David Icke, if you ever watch any of his stuff, he refers to us as biological computers. And that's pretty literal, really. We're consciousness inside biological bodies that are computers. We have software, we have hardware, we get viruses. A lot of that is like, that future, this gets kind of deep, but so I'm saying, like, it is possible to wipe somebody's hard drive in their brain, like they're doing with these boys, and using it for artificial intelligence.
Well, even the shootings and all that, it seems that I've heard that argument for that as well, that, the technology.
That the police are the robot police, and they don't know how to control the settings to say.
Well, not even them. I mean, the citizens that are opening fire in theaters and wherever it is, schools and things like that, the people, at the end of it, they don't have a recollection of having done it and things. And
well, I had a dream actually too that I think is really going to come to pass, because they're always talking about technology like smartphones and Wi-Fi, and how everyone is just addicted to their smartphone, and Pokemon Go, and that it's like the GPS aspect of it. When the time comes and they want it, and they want to in the present timeline, activate everybody, all they have to do is turn that setting on that phone on, and you're holding that phone, and in my dream, that's all they did, and they gave a signal to the phone, and it went right into the people and kind of turned them into automated robots.
There's a movie about that years and years ago, and it was very similar, and it was before cell phones. Somebody would get a phone call, It could be on a payphone or whatever, and there was a frequency that went through the phone in the phone
Right.
call, and that changed the person into
Right.
a killer per se.
Right. So that
That
I
kind
could
of
see
thing.
that with those shooters. That's
Yeah.
what was making me think of that. But so I had the dream, and I don't have a smartphone. I have one of the, I'm able to text online, but I'm not going to ever get a smartphone because they are definitely frequency disruptors, and that's what the whole thing with the camera on the phone is, because that camera, like even right now what we're doing, is recording, and even on the TV, they say they're sending out the frequencies and, whatever. But I think the smartphones, though, is how they could easily get the population to obey, in a signal, just all at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, I think you're probably correct in that as well. And if not that, they have the chip coming, the whole thing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's so, you know,
Right,
it's so stacked against us, and we
right,
won't even know, and
right.
it's probably already happened, and
Yeah, so that's
whatever.
kind of why you don't have to worry about preparing yourself and to have your gun at your house. Like, what are you going to be able to do with that?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the federal government has more weapons than I can wield.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
and they're going to bring everybody if they bring anybody. So
Right. So there's no
there's
defense.
there's no defense.
None.
You just put your arms up and pray.
Yeah.
But that said, when the money thing crashes, how do you see that playing out? Will it be just another stock crash, or will it be the dollar that crashes? Will it?
Okay, well, I was kind of doing some research on that too because, I mean, I've always planned on this ever since they told me it was going to happen in Montana. It looks like we're like you're looking at me, but you can't be. But anyway, whatever.
I mean,
Sometimes when you're looking at these Skype calls, you're always looking down or in the corner or somewhere, but you're actually making eye contact. I don't know how you're doing that. So anyway,
I'm looking at the screen. That's all. Anyway, go ahead.
weird. All right. Side note there. So ever since Montana, I knew that's what they had told me was going to happen. And I was telling my father, who has all these stocks, I don't know if you should sell your stock. They're telling me money's going to be worthless, was what the phrase was. Money's going to
Right.
be
Yeah.
worthless. So, but I was like, I didn't want to tell them to sell a stock. I'm just saying this is what they're telling me. I don't know if it applies to anybody else. But now, so then all along I've had this thing like, where I have things like if money became worthless in my house, tools or seeds or, whatever that I've kept for just years and years and years. Because if this really happens, I'm going to want to have these things. So even though they're adding clutter to the house, in those times, that's what they're for. But, when you don't have a lot of storage, they take up space in your house.
Right.
But so what they've said though is that if the money thing happened, it's not going to last for long, and they're going to immediately swoop in and reboot the system, and so that's kind of what they're saying. The bad guys have a plan, but the good guys have a plan that is already destined to win. Like there's no question about it. So it's kind of weird that the bad guys would keep going along as if maybe they're not aware of them, but I find that hard to believe. But so the good guys are
Well,
there.
it's funny because I sent you that thing I had. Supposedly Ron Paul endorsed these researchers, and one of the things they said in the research was that it would be rebooted. So even if it crashes,
And
the only way for
it has to crash to end this.
Right, it has to crash to end it, but at the same time, the only way, I mean, the people in power generally crash it, and then they make a profit off of it,
Right.
and then they go use that profit to
Right.
fund wars and things,
Right. Or to make themselves richer, yeah.
Yeah, make themselves richer. And so, I mean, it's got to come back at some level if there's going to be any kind of capitalism, or like you said, it could be something totally new.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what they're saying. This time, the systems everything's going to change. And because we're moving into that higher frequency.
So what does that look like if everything's going to change? I mean, how long does the killing go on when everybody's losing their minds? And then how long is it for the,
I might not have those details. That's why I was talking to Denise. Like, what does she see? And she was saying, 8 to 10 years is what she was seeing. And she was also seeing that there's going to be places where you're not even going to be affected by it. It's going to be like how you watch the news and you see it happening to other countries, and it has nothing to do with you, and it's not affecting you. And I think that's how, I don't think it's going to affect me. I'll see it on the news, like we see Venezuela with their prices, for hamburgers.
So, okay, why won't it affect you?
Well, first of all, I'm on their side. I mean, not that this has nothing to do with saying I'm in a position because I'm boots on the ground, that they'll be telling me how to help people. So, like, I've heard other people, okay, like, I'll just talk about Barbara Marciniak. I mean, I like the information that they talk about through her, but they always say nobody's going to help you. You're on your own. You've got to learn these lessons yourself. If you're dumb enough to use a smartphone, we can't change that fact. That's what. So they say things like that. But the ones I'm working with, I'm definitely here to help people. That's why I'm here. Like, it's not like we're just gonna watch and you learn your own lessons. So I don't know but she says she's from the future too. So it's just kind of weird because we're not the same on that.
So she's advising against smartphones, and what else?
Well, she speaks as a channel of the Pleiadians.
Okay.
Yeah, they call them dumb phones, and they call Wi-Fi we-fry. They have their nicknames.
They call it what? Meat fry?
We fry. We fry like electric. Like we're shorting ourselves out with the.
Which is what I've got going right now. I've got Wi-Fi. You have Wi-Fi.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I have Wi-Fi. I don't have a smartphone, but I have Wi-Fi, and but I try not to be on the computer more than like an hour a day. So, and what other, like, they make fun of people on through Barbara Marciniak, like Hillary, they call her Shrillery, because they say she's shrill, and they tell people things, but they don't do anything to interact and they specifically say they're not going to either. And she's the one who still talks about beware of the Anunnaki coming, and that's why, like, I listen to her to see, is she contradicting anything that I'm saying or feeling, and that is actually something of a. That's the only way I can say how that makes sense. She's talking about them going forward on our timeline and the things they've done wrong. And I'm talking about, even though she says she's from the future, she doesn't have the emotions that I have with them. There's no emotions with hers. There's no emotions. That's what I noticed. And I have strong emotions.
Emotions, how? How does that make a difference?
Well, like, she's, she doesn't refer to anybody like she's trying to help anybody, they have a sense of humor, no question about that, but she's not like saying we're going to help you. She's specifically saying we're not going to help you.
Okay, let's say it happens for 8 to 10 years. It's an economic.
Yeah, like, it's been going on. Look at all the disasters in the world. We're watching them unfolding. It's just going to be more.
But the economy somehow manages.
Yeah, no.
I mean, the Dow's traded at over 18,000. It crashed at 14. So, here's where we are. So now, supposing it crashes again, because, that's the only.
They're gonna no. This is why they're gonna crash it, though. It's the bad guys crashing it on purpose. That's not part of the good guys' plan.
I understand that, but if you're saying the pandemonium is going to continue for 8 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot of shrapnel from that.
And that's actually what Denise is saying. Just to clarify, I don't have a feel for that at all. I don't have a feel.
Right, but let's supposing that happens. What would you suggest to help people?
Okay, so what I picture myself doing,
right?
Kind of how I have to look at it.
Okay.
Because I wrote the Wild Edible book.
Right.
So, like, for me, I'm not stocking up on any food at all. I'm not buying dehydrated food or canned food or anything. I mean, I have some things growing. I have a lot of fruit trees, which I planted years ago. So now they are mature and producing fruit. So that's something anybody could start doing, at least plant some fruit trees. But then again, Florida, is kind of destined to be underwater. So, but yet they have not told me I need to go anywhere. But that's possible that will be coming up in the next 2 months. And when they do it, they don't give me much warning. They just all of a sudden it's time, go, leave now. And that's when I will definitely put that out. But so far, I mean, I have lots of books. I have, I don't know, 10 of these in my house full of, these are wild edible books over here. There's a lot of gardening books, insect books, medical, because I'm a master herbalist, how to treat things with medicine. I have been stocking up on essential oils. I do, of course, have all my tinctures, and the plants, knowing my yard is full of wild edibles and medicinal plants. So to me, I'm like, either that sustains me and I survive off of that, or, I really don't care. I don't care because I know this is just temporary, an illusion, a holographic image, this whole thing we live
No,
in.
I get that. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah.
that too.
So I'm not in the least worried.
But at the same time, lunch comes and I'm hungry,
Right. Well,
And
so I was thinking, yeah, like, I mean, I really, really seriously could care less if I starved to death. I could care less because that just means you get to go on to the next phase that much sooner, But I'm not saying I'm going to try to do that. I mean, we have the survival instinct in us that kicks in and wants to survive. So, they say, I mean, that's all I'm telling you. I'm not preparing with anything other than that. I have my books. I do have my medicines in my house. I did study what all the Native Americans ate in every state where they were. Like, are you near the ocean? Expect to fish, expect to, like learn how to, I'll never eat animals, so I'm not going to catch squirrels or anything like that. But I do have the Civil War cookbooks, what they were eating. I studied all those wartime things.
So you won't eat animals, but you eat fish?
I will eat the fish, yeah.
Okay.
I will not eat animals. I'll just,
What's the difference?
There's a lot of roots you can eat. If you have smilax, if you know what that looks like, cattails. I'm just not concerned about food. I'm figuring I'll just eat off the land, the way Native Americans always did. Like, why are we in such a panic that we don't have stores? It's because we paved everything over, sure, and you don't know where things are, and you have a fertilized, manicured lawn that doesn't have anything on it. I get that, but they did survive without having a store. And I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. I would help people learn. I mean, I don't know how, though, It's not like I'm going to go in my neighborhood and tell them to come to my yard. I don't know how that is all going to go down. I'm kind of thinking, actually, I might go help my family in Connecticut. That's what I would think. I'm like, I have it all here, though. I am so stocked with the years of preparation with the fruit trees. Like,
wouldn't it be better for them to come here because you can plant food?
Well, except I'm still wondering if Florida's going to have an issue with tidal waves.
Well, the whole East Coast will if we do. I mean,
Yeah. Right. And Florida's 100 miles wide, just, and it's shaped like a spoon. So if water flows in, it'll sit there because it's spoon shaped. But,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So again, though, I know they're going to tell me what to do at that moment that I need to know. And I will put that out, whatever they're telling me. Right now, I am taking a trip. In this week, I'm leaving. I'm driving up to New Jersey from Florida. And on that trip, it's going to be the first road trip I've had since, before my son was alive. So like almost 20 years. This is like new to have this time alone with them again, because that's where we do our thing, is on the road.
So your son's not going with you?
No, he's not going. And this is definitely going to be a time where they're going to be communicating. So I will probably have stuff to say after I come back.
And what's in New Jersey?
Well, there's a surprise party, an 80th birthday surprise party. Nobody knows I'm coming. It was like a spontaneous.
Except that you're posting it on YouTube.
Yeah. So, but I know. Well, I'm not posting this yet. I mean, whatever.
You're gonna wait.
I have to cut that out.
Wait a week.
Well, I'm not.
Wait a week. It'll be fine.
Well, that's another thing, with family members. Like, I did share the other video with my mother, but no one else. I don't want them to panic yet. You know, I don't want them to get concerned yet. Because until I get something more definite myself, like an instruction myself, like I got nothing, you know, like, yes, I see this coming. I'm watching it. I look for updates, like how much closer is the planet now, you know, but I don't expect to get new instructions until this trip. I might get something. I am expecting something new, but as far as an action to take, not until September. And then September 27th, 2016, though, there are several people predicting that's the day, specifically, the dollar is going to crash. September 27th. And if you listen to all these YouTubes that have that as their title, not one of them says why that day. They never even talk about it in their YouTube. I mean, they talk about all the events happening with money, but
and they're talking about the dollar. They're not talking about the market.
They're saying the dollar is going to crash on September 27th, guaranteed. And I don't know that that's true, but I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You know, that kind of goes along with this whole time frame. And I do see it happening before the election, because I really feel like these elections are that pivotal moment in time that, you know, I mean, what she was saying was all the stuff about Hillary is going to come out. And I think Hillary is just the pinnacle of this whole thing. The destroying Hillary is going to be like destroying the mothership, you know. Like in the Star Wars, you know, where they shot
I get it.
What's that thing called? The star, whatever, I don't know. That circle spaceship thing.
Yeah, the mothership, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
That's, if you get that target thing right at Hillary and it blows, then I think we're good. And I, you know, because I'm not saying it's her working alone, but you know, she's like their central computer now.
Guess that's why Bill wouldn't have sex with her.
Well,
to electrify.
Well, I don't know when that happened, you know, but I definitely think something changed. I think she's part of that artificial intelligence thing. So I think she's part human still, but I think she's part, you know, whatever the chips they put in for that. I definitely think she's got them.
It's probably the polyester in the pantsuits, you know.
Watch some of these things, you can see her short-circuiting, like she said. Like, she just freezes on the screen, and this guy has to come up and kind of hit her again, like you hit a TV. He's like, keep talking, and then she's like, oh, you know, and she bounces back, but she freezes. She actually freezes in motion and is standing there. So that's what I highly suspect that. So next time
I like Reagan with Alzheimer's, you know.
Well, that's what they said. The Alzheimer's was part of their way of wiping people's memories.
Well, yeah, you know, I think about that. I think, you know, we're at the age of information, but unless you know unless you can remember what you need to type in, you can't find what you're looking for. So the age of information, I mean, used to be you go to a library, you could be just a complete idiot and find what you're looking for. But now with a computer, you actually have to know something to figure out what you're looking for. It seems like it's easier and more convenient, but with memory loss, it's not. It's worse. You know, my mother couldn't do anything on a computer. You know, she's done. You know, so yeah, anybody who's facing those type of memory issues, and you're right, the memory thing.
Well, they're saying though they did that on purpose.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I think it's part of the whole food thing.
Well, I mean, I know for like the population in general, but I'm saying they could target specific people and give them.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know the detail. I'm expecting fully expecting them to be like. They said this is training. The YouTubes I post and the talks I give, they said it's training for when they have what they're going to tell me to start sharing with people. And that's that whole thing that is going to start happening. They are going to be telling me what to tell people.
How to live the new life, whatever that is.
Yeah, like whatever that is. And they're going to, a lot of times, you know, even a psychic, many times a psychic, they'll block themselves from being able to be read by a psychic. Like if they don't want the information shown to me even until they want to show it, you know, like, so they'll just be like, we're not saying anything, you're not getting anything until it's time. And then all of a sudden it'll be like, okay, now it's time, here, do this, you know. So that's one thing, you know, I'm like, somebody described the feeling as kind of like being in an army tank in war, in peacetime, you know, where You know you're there to do battle on some level, you know, spiritual battle, and you know there's nothing going on. So what do you do in the meantime, you know? But then there'll come the day when you'll be like, okay, now, you know, now it's time. And
Time for the
that's
troops to march on.
um,
Now, yeah, I guess till then. So now, what are you doing? You said you're keeping your cash on hand and you're using more of your credit card for bills, and
well,
then just
especially
paying.
now, especially to just even if you just said until the end of the year, but especially until the elections,
Right.
especially until the elections. Why pay any more than the minimum? Really, that's what I'm doing now because I'm like that's only 2 months, you know. So at least because if that crash is going to happen, that's when it's going to happen.
Right.
And you know, if it doesn't happen, then just go back to paying things off. But that we're very close now, so um,
That
why
makes
not?
sense,
Yeah.
especially if it's September. I mean, you know.
Oh, that one, yeah. Because she said we were talking about other dates when I was going back north again, as at the end of September, the last weekend of September before the 27th, and then the last weekend of October, which is the weekend before the election. So I was like, are those dates going to even happen? And I have flights on both those dates. And she was saying I might be driving up on the September one even, which is 2 days before that 27th. So that's what I was trying to think, you know. I mean, and they'll tell me, of course. I won't have to figure this out by myself, but they won't tell me until I need to know. So, but you know, I'm looking ahead. Like, you know, is the wedding? One of them is a wedding in October. You know, but the timing could be such that I happen to be in Connecticut for that reason to help them. You know, my family up there. But again, you know, it's not. I have a network in Florida, so you know, I think, you know, at least I'd be able to put the information out. Like if they're telling me get out of Florida, Florida's, you know, which
Right.
they did tell me that at one point. I think it was like 10 years ago. They were saying get out of Florida now. And I did have a meeting where I had a bunch of people that I was saying I don't know why, and other people were coming up to me and saying they saw dreams that they had of a tsunami that was going to cover Florida. But then, and it was urgent at the time, and then it passed though. It quickly passed. But there was a moment when I was like, really, really now, you know, and then that passed though, and now 10 years have gone by. So, and I have cats and stuff, you know, that I'm like, okay, would we take our rabbit? You know, we're talking about this with my son, you know, or should we let him loose? You know, I don't know. So I don't know, but I'm kind of half expecting, you know, maybe I'll be told to go, but I have everything here though, and I wouldn't be able to take everything, all these books and my tinctures and my, you know, so I'm kind of like, should I make a list that, okay, if I have to go, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Tell
You
me.
know,
They'll tell me.
have kind of a bug out bag. You know,
Yeah.
got your passport in there, your cash in there, some books that are essential, and
Well,
your
it
clothes.
would be ahead of the curve, like it would be ahead of the crash, but you know, so I would still be able to even rent a U-Haul if I had to,
Yeah.
if that was where I needed to go and be. But you know, and I don't know, that might happen. But I would, if I got the warning, I would definitely put it out and give everyone else in Florida at least, you know, that warning too. But
It's funny
I
about the tsunami. I've heard the same thing for years. People talking about a tsunami with Florida, and supposedly there's a fault that's right, off the Bahamas or somewhere in the islands.
it's where the Canary Islands is. There's
The
a
Canary
volcano
Islands,
there.
that's what it is. Yeah. Well,
Um,
the Canary, so that's on the other side though. That's over by
yeah, near
Spain, Canary.
Africa,
I think.
near Africa. You know,
So,
just
and it would start there and it would come over from here.
yeah, if that volcano erupted,
Okay.
then it would send a tidal wave over here.
Okay.
And back 10 years ago, they started putting up tsunami warning signs on the coastline, like Melbourne, and that had never appeared, you know. And that was when the wildlife restoration projects were moving all the animals up north of Lake Okeechobee, at least, you know, from the southern tip of Florida. They were specifically moving them up. I went to meetings where they were showing that that part of Florida was going to be underwater, and they were moving all the sanctuaries up to protect the animals. And people were watching it going, well, what about the people, And they were like, I don't know, that's not our job. But this was like 10 years ago, and then those signs started appearing, so it was like, okay, is this
So
really?
who was it to move the animals?
This was, it was put on by, I still have that guy's card because it was so fascinating to me that, wow, somebody's actually talking about this, that it's really happening. This was like 10 years ago. I don't know if it was somebody from Harbor Branch. I don't think so, though. But it was done at the Environmental Learning Center in Wabasso. And it was,
In where?
Wabasso Beach is like between Sebastian and Vero Beach.
Okay.
But the room was packed. There was like 100 people in the room, and you know, so they were moving the animals up then. And then those signs started appearing on the beach, like back then. So something changed, but nothing's happened yet. But I've seen other people, I look at some other people's prophecies and stuff, and there's one woman, she's been having these recent dreams, I think, or I don't know, visions, or however she gets it, she describes it. And she definitely is saying Florida is, going to go underwater. But again, I'm waiting. They'll be the ones to tell me if I have to move. And they've done that before, but it's been a couple decades now, but at one point they were moving me every 6 months. And it was like, okay, now go, and it's just like, all right, you're like waiting. You finally get something to do with yourself in the meantime, So I know what it'll be like when they do it, and they haven't done it yet. That's all I'm saying. I'm still here. My son's still going to school. Still planning to finish this year, we're still paying for things in the spring.
I know that's the thing. I mean, I saw the video and I was like, well, that just changed plans a bit,
I know. I mean, I talked to him about it. Yeah, like, what would you want to take?
Yeah, how do you
we bring we have 4 cats, like, are they all going to come in our car? So we talk about it, Actually, after this trip, I'll know if I need to get one of those hitches on my car to pull a U-Haul.
You'll probably need, it's probably a good idea.
Well, I'll find out. I'm waiting for them to tell me if I need it or not. And I think after this trip, I'll know.
Okay.
That'll be 4 days on the road, 4 solid days.
I just spent the week with some people, and they're basically survivalists. A lot of these people. And it's interesting because they're educated people. I mean, they're like, not like physician assistant, doctor type people and stuff, and they're all gun-toting, survivalists, and their contention is you've got about 3 days if the money crashes. People will still take it for about 3 days to get to where you need to be in that period of time, and that's it. And
because then I don't even know, what happens with gas. Like, if the money crashes, is there still going to be gas if you're trying to drive 1,200 miles?
How do you get anywhere? So yeah, I know the whole thing is just mind-boggling. So.
I mean, a lot of people are definitely saying know where you're going to want to go, at least, know and tell family members or whatever. But, I don't think it's time. I haven't told anybody yet in my family. So, but,
I've heard that you should have kind of a location, and that everybody should know to go to that location. Right. The problem is, like you said, if Florida goes under or whatever it is, where is the safe location? I mean, the Appalachian Mountains, if a tsunami comes, what do you do?
Well, yeah. I mean, Mount Dora there is the spine of Florida, and near the springs, that was always, in the years past, that was always the thing that Florida had an advantage of, we have 600 natural springs, more than anywhere in the world, and that was how the water source was going to be. So, they've shown me that. I mean, I explored like every single national park in Florida, every spring that there is, and that was the big deal about Florida. So I'm not saying we're going to have to leave. But all the springs are north of like Orlando.
Right.
They are all north of Orlando. There's none south of that.
Right.
So I do think at minimum we would have to go toward the springs. And Wekiva Spring is in the middle, is in such a congested area. I think Rainbow Springs is a nice mellow area and a beautiful river. You can swim in it. You can, I do have a filter. I did buy a survival water filter to filter any kind of water without electricity.
Yeah.
So I do have that because water would drive me nuts. I think I could last a lot longer without food, but the water thing would drive me insane.
Yeah, you've got to have clean water. I mean, that's just a basic necessity.
That's the thing. I do have a water filter. We have lots of water filters that don't require electricity. You could take rainwater, whatever.
Right. Yeah, and you can build, filtering systems with sand and other things.
Gravel, rocks, sand.
Right.
And that's in the back of my wild edible books, by the way, if you have that one. Yeah. It's in there. But I bought one already done, so in case I don't have to make my own. Yeah, with charcoal. Charcoal would be one of the things in there too. And you can use like a sock. And then there's even a tree. The moringa tree has the seed husk of the moringa tree, which I tried growing for years and years, and I really should try it again. That seed husk, there's YouTube showing how it filters dirty ditch water into reverse osmosis clean water in 24 hours by putting it in a bottle of water, shaking it up, leaving it overnight or whatever. The husk of the moringa seed. So, and it's a tree that definitely grows in tropical desert areas. It thrives in Africa and in here, if you could, it's hard to start it, but that might be something to get, I have seeds of that. I haven't done it in a while, maybe because I'm leaving, I don't know.
I'm going to be dead by lunchtime, I'm sure. I don't know. Unless I can find a Subway that's open, I'm done.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I know, I'm like, who cares? I really don't care.
Well, I don't want to starve to death. That looks painful to me, starving to death.
Well, no, here's another thing, though. In my book, I do have, like, poisonous plants in there, too. And
there you go.
I've had conversations with people where, if you had to kill yourself, what would be the fastest, easiest way?
How would you do it quickly?
Yeah, like, there's one in there, the rosary pea, which is...
What's it called?
Rosary pea.
3P?
Rosary, like rosary beads.
A rosary pea, okay.
You can the fastest way is to take the juice with like a needle and inject it under the skin. It takes like 40 minutes. If you chewed it, it would take 3 days. But you'd be in all kinds of pain and spasms and stuff. But there's other, if you had to, like that would be one. And then what was the other one? There's another one. It's kind of like how those people have those things they chew in the movies, if they get captured or they're spies.
Right, the cyanide tablets, yeah.
I'm just saying if you had to. I mean, a lot of people are killing themselves, like drinking themselves to death over 15 years or, whatever. And I'm just like, why don't you just eat one of these, If this is your end goal, why suffer for 15 years?
And make everybody else miserable in the process. Yeah. Let's end it now.
I mean, I'm like, here's the book. I'll leave it on the counter. I mean, I'm not kidding either.
I do.
It happened to a family member of mine. And she did just die. So I was like, I had that conversation. What are you waiting for? Why are you doing this to yourself?
Did you?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't tell her that, but I was like, why are you doing this slow death torture way? And it's because they don't have the courage to do it all at once. And I'm not suggesting people, but that's what Denise said. People are going to be committing suicide.
Right.
But just because it's going to be just too much for them,
I think that's I look at it and I think it would be interesting to survive it. Only from like a Viktor Frankl standpoint, you could maybe record it you could.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That was a book I was going to write. I started writing, because I'm trying to pass the time while I'm waiting. And the book I was going to write is The World Before was going to be my title. Just to, and put it in a time capsule, bury it. To just have a record of what, what was going on at this moment in time. Like in Terminator, that series is awesome, where you can she recorded herself on tapes,
Right.
Something that would survive, like a cataclysm.
Yeah.
Just to give the next generation who is clueless what happened here, after you see all the death and destruction and they're the survivors and they don't They don't know how the world was. That's the only way. We have to have a record of it. But it's not. I don't think it's going to be like that, though. It's not going to be like other times of destruction. This one is supposed to be different. This one, we're not supposed to go backwards ever again. Like all the other ones, we had to restart civilization.
Yeah, but I mean, if your training in Montana was training for what we're going to have to go through the next 10 years, you know.
Well, I don't know if that was for 10 years, but
8 years, 5 years.
No, they're saying to me,
year.
They're saying like a 4-month period.
Saying what?
4 months at the most. That's what they're kind of telling me. 4 months. The reboot would happen, within 4 months. She's just talking about, just like how you see on the news now, like Iraq, Afghanistan. They've just been Syria bombed and bombed and bombed for, how many years now? Like, it's like.
Yeah, and the military's running the streets. It's under siege.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I'm just saying those things have gone on for 10 years, It's not supposed to be that way, though. It's not supposed to be that way. I think there's supposed to be, I mean, I don't know, but a pretty quick changeover with the good stuff, like in 4 months. I'm not saying I have a way to last 4 months. I mean, I
was going to say, like I said, I'm not going to make it to lunch, so.
I'm just saying, I am not the least bit worried. I know they'll tell me, and I'll.
Well, they'll tell you, but schmucks like me will be like,
people.
They'll be out in the ditch looking for, the McDonald's wrappers with a little bit of cheese left in them,
Well, though, if they're going to tell me, and I'm going to be putting stuff out, then YouTube and internet is going to still be working.
For some who are lucky enough to have it.
I mean, because I was like, should I get a ham radio? But they're like over $1,000 though, so I was like, oh, forget that. But and then if nobody in your family has one anyway, I mean, but still, somebody. I guess it'd be good to know somebody. Maybe if people chipped in for one, but I don't know. I'm waiting for them to tell me I have to do that, and they haven't said that yet. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to plan for this is something that takes years and a team of people, I think.
You
need a community of support to be behind this idea, and like an ego village would be a perfect setup for something like this.
Somebody sent me some questions, so I'm looking at his questions here. Like he says, is there a way that someone can encounter Pleiadians before Planet X, or will they just reveal themselves afterwards? So, I'm just going to have to say, based on my thing, just to answer his questions, that they haven't revealed themselves to me, so I doubt it. I strongly, highly doubt it. It's a frequency thing, though. We have to, meet them. As the Earth elevates, this whole timeline, that's where we're meeting, is that. But even then, I don't even know. I mean, Denise, if you heard in her thing, she said in 50 years, we'll all be sitting around the tables like in Star Wars with all different shapes and sizes of creatures, beings. But,
it'd be more honest anyway, rather than reptilians that,
Well, all of those are supposed to be gone on the new Earth. Because it's a frequency thing. They can't exist. It's painful to them. Heaven is painful if you're at a low vibration. It's a painful hell.
Okay, let's talk about vibration for a minute. So, what are you saying for people to raise their vibration?
Well, organic food that hasn't been adulterated with chemicals, that's the number one.
So food is the first one. What else?
Yeah, food, because that's how you lower your vibrations, by eating dense, low vibration food. That's a big way how you lower your vibrations.
Okay.
So eating normally, that would be the normal way to eat.
Eating what?
Normally, food that isn't contaminated, that's actually just normal. It's not that it's high vibration. Right. It's right. The absence of eating low vibration. But the other way, though, is with essential oils. Is that, you know, they definitely, this whole past year I've been doing talks on essential oils on different subjects, like almost one a month. And some of them are on YouTube. One I would suggest is called The Essential Lifestyle. And that just kind of sums up, you know, essential oils and how you know the difference on a good brand or not a good brand. And then and what they can be used for, though, and it, you know, or as a replacement for, you know, even pharmaceuticals are so low vibration. If
Right.
there's something else out to get healthier, or that's part of the decline of the human race. And, you know, that's another thing, you know, when this happens, if people can't get their Prozac or, you know,
I know, right? I know.
or nicotine or you know, alcohol, I mean, all
Right.
those people are going to short circuit.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
that's
it's
going to
true.
be the crazy chaos, is that it's people who aren't able to function without chemical dependence.
Without chemical dependence, yeah, that's true too. That's the one of the thing that I was reading. He said, you know, one thing you should do if the dollar crashes or something like that is make sure you're in a wealthy area, because you know the ghetto burns itself. You know, they always set themselves on fire. You know, I mean, remember L.A. and the riots in L.A.
Oh, yeah. Cities.
And the
Cities,
Koreans
for sure.
shooting everybody, and yes, they have the cities, and you know.
But here's the thing about the wealthy, though, is the wealthy people won't have the skills. So it's the blue collar people who will have the skills, like the electricians, the plumbers, the carpenters. You know, they're the ones that the wealthy people hire to get these mechanical things done. And when this happens, the pyramid's going to flip. And the ones who are going to have the power and know-how and, you know, be the leaders are going to be the blue collar people who are in physical good shape too, because they're used to working.
Yeah, they're gonna have to work.
The wealthy are gonna be who aren't used to doing their own anything and used to paying somebody for it, are gonna suffer. I mean, they might have a temporary stockhold of stuff, but they won't have any skills. All their skills won't be worth anything. I've known that for like a long time, decades. That they've told me that blue collar is what you need, you know. So I've tried to have my son learn electricity, plumbing, you know, whatever. Carpentry is a big one, you know, building, using natural materials, how to use tools without electricity, you know, even how to make your own devices. Some of those Boy Scout books, like how to build things, you know.
Yeah. He's an Eagle Scout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've done well with all that stuff.
Yeah, so like people who are used to no power and living without electricity, you know, nothing's going to change in their world at all, you know?
Right, yeah.
But I guess maybe like thinking of how I would get information out through the YouTube or whatever, I mean, that would only work, I guess, on the approaching this thing. And then once we hit it, whatever is going to change, if there was no power, you know, then it would be word of mouth. But approaching it, I'll be able to get stuff out, like whatever I'm being told. I mean, I don't know. But power, yeah, it's supposed to at least blip off for a little while. And then
so there's no talk about
the new devices are supposedly already built and ready to go, though. They're saying free energy.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, the technology's there. I mean, there's free energy stuff that's out there.
Yeah, that's been suppressed. So they're saying that could immediately come into play.
Supposedly coming out. I mean, there's the people that did the movie Cirrus, the UFO people. I think he's coming out with a sequel to that too. He was talking about he's making some kind of demands to Congress or somebody.
Oh yeah, the Stephen Greer.
I guess that's who it is.
Yeah, we built it. Yes, they just haven't allowed it out. So yeah, supposedly that would swoop right in, you know. But I don't know what that means, if it's a couple months or how long that is. But I think less than 4 months.
Yeah, because that was
not going to be a long. It's not going to be a long time between one system crashing, which we want to crash, because it has to just crash. I mean, how long would it take us to undo all this if we tried to do it politically, you know?
Well, it's easy to say you want it to crash, but then when you look at all the people that are going to be harmed from that, you know, I mean, who's it benefiting when it crashes? It's usually just benefiting the rich. So it depends how it crashes. If something changes.
Then they also said, you know how the rich have all those underground cities built for their protection? They're saying once they go down there, they're just going to lock them in there. They won't be able to come back out.
Okay.
So, that would be like a mousetrap. So it's not that they're going to be able to avoid things, They could flood the inner earth and then they're trapped in the cellar. I mean, I don't know.
I just feel like vibrationally, if everything was raised vibrationally, you wouldn't have to worry about all this stuff. It would take all the lies out of the system.
Right.
Everybody would be able to communicate without words.
Well, that's the other thing. With the higher vibration, we are going to be able to read each other's thoughts, so there can be no more lying.
Yeah, the line goes out of the system, and then, the system can't be the same.
And it's changing over now. The transparency is happening. I mean, look at all the stuff coming out about Hillary, that I learned 20 years ago. It is coming out like daily. Like they're doing another FBI search on her now. I heard that WikiLeaks has more stuff, the hackers, so the YouTube,
the Russian hackers that Trump.
Yes, YouTube does, is the unfiltered news, that people are able to share without the media is just so worthless. Yeah. So worthless. So transparency is coming about, but then, all of a sudden, the light bulb goes on and we can now read each other's thoughts like, you can't hide anything after that. And she is supposed to crash and burn, this year. And I'm not saying, Donald Trump is the answer. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying Hillary is going to be the CPU of this whole thing that has to, have the plug pulled on her.
I think the court gesture analogy of Trump was pretty accurate. I think he's taken the message of the right and he's emphasized it with loudspeakers to the point where it's just clearly ridiculous. And his fuck 'em all kind of attitude just shows. I mean, you can't. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I know. He really is revealing everything. Like, it really is.
So it's cool from that standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's entertaining. Absolutely. Yeah. That's why.
But it does feel like we're watching, reality TV.
Yeah. And that's why I wonder, is he just part of this distraction so we don't realize they're about to drop the dollar,
Right. Yeah. So.
Like, I don't know if he is part of it, because I watched them going, wow, they really look like they mean what they're saying, like their emotions look real, but I mean, Hillary is for sure just reading off of a teleprompter and an actor. She doesn't look genuine at all to me, but that's why I'm like, even the people spectating on the news, I'm like, they really look like they believe what they're saying. So they, how many
I always wonder that. I watch, they don't seem to have any shame, remorse, or any time. I mean, they just say they're crazy, as stupid as stuff, and you're just like, really? You have no reflection at all. I mean,
yeah.
But they're on there making $1 million a year or whatever they're making to be on TV.
20 million, yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right, let me look at some other questions here. Okay, he says, I know there isn't an exact date of Nibiru's arrival and the pole shifts, but besides the New Madrid fault, the coast of California underwater, and financial crash, what other warnings are there before martial law? Well, besides, he's saying the financial crash.
So wait a minute. So he's saying pole shifts, California underwater. Did he mention Florida in that? And then
the New Madrid fault line and then
the crash with the economy
and Nibiru's arrival too. Okay, so actually, this martial law has to happen before Nibiru or Planet X is even seen in the sky. Which I was saying, it would come.
They have to put it in place first so that people are under control.
Yeah. So they have.
What about the FEMA camps? Is there anything to the FEMA camps? Is that for real? That supposedly they have all these FEMA caskets already made?
I know. So that's what I was saying. And I learned about them in '95 in Montana. And so then, like, years later, I was like, well, how come I haven't heard anything else about that? And I was trying to look for what's the update, because then it was like everywhere. Why are they building all these? And all the fencing they were saying was to protect. It wasn't to protect people trying to break in. It was to protect people from leaving, like the wire, that you couldn't cross to get out.
Yeah.
And the trains, they were built with train stations, right nearby and stuff, like for. And they're
So it's
saying,
going to be like Nazi Germany. They
yeah,
ship
yeah,
people in on trains and they throw them in a makeshift concentration camp.
yeah. So
And that's why. Why are they doing that? Or
yeah,
why?
well, that's what I'm saying. So I have to look at this in two ways. One way is, I have to look at this as one way is their evil plot way, which would be just like the concentration camps in Nazi Germany way, where they, in the book that I was referring to with Operation Garden Plot, which Bill Cooper, the book is called Behold a Pale Horse. And Bill Cooper,
I remember reading that book years and years ago.
And he has it's just all copies of documents. He doesn't really tell any narrative. He just copied all of these top secret papers and stuff from the government. And in there, they have FEMA camps mentioned in there. And so in that scenario, what they're trying to do is make a slave race again, where like now we kind of are in a slave race. It's a mild version where we're a debt society, a debt-based society. We earn very, very little money and we're forced to work, to get money to buy things. But it's at such a real small level that we have to work all the time. And they don't want that system to crash because they use the products people make, and produce. So they've kept that going, but I guess at some point they would only have like a skeleton slave race, maybe just to supply, and this is in that Operation Garden Plot type scenario. That was maybe the original thing with the FEMA camps was, I don't know, to, do like concentration camps, basically. They were concentration camps. So, but in this other scenario, if they're just trying to control the craziness of the people seeing Planet X in December, we would see it like there's telescope taking photographs of it now, but this is without a telescope that we would see it in December. This December, they would have to have this in place, and that's where they're talking about, I guess, the Agenda 21 thing even comes into play with the community cities that, everything's like shopping and all that is in a one little area, and they're kind of like maybe a nice prison, where we have the ability to.
So basically, we're all going to live in Walmart's parking lot.
Piled on top.
Yeah.
Vertical.
Stacked.
Yeah, stacked. But that's the Agenda 21. That's still kind of the nice evil plot.
Well, Agenda 21 is killing people, though, isn't it?
Agenda 21 is about restoring the land so that people can't live on it, and they crowd people, take them away from rural areas, and put them into concentrated little clusters so that the land can heal. So some of that I was like, well, what's wrong with keeping land wild? Like a lot of it is kind of, if you were the super rich, you might be thinking the same way, like we need to preserve the land, we're destroying
and kill off a certain percentage of the population because there's too many people, needing resources and all that. That makes sense.
The Bilderberg group, that is, they're the ones who's making all these decisions. Yeah. So but in the other way, if they're trying to control chaos, knowing Planet X is coming, once people see it, and still wanting to have an organized way of people going about their life, which is why they don't want to tell anybody yet, because they still want people producing products and running the system at their jobs. So in that way, I guess the people who, it'd be like prison camps, the ones who were out of control that they couldn't control, and they didn't just kill them right there on the spot. I guess it'd be like where they bring these out of control people. So I think the more calm you stay, I don't know if they're going to be dragging people out of their houses if they're not doing anything upsetting, maybe it's just all the crazy chaos and the rioters. They're just going to, if you're just doing your own thing and you're in an area that not too much is happening, I don't know if you're a threat. So
Sebastian would be that area. Fort Pierce is going to be on fire, I can just tell you right now.
You know what, though? It's still so small compared to New York City.
That's true.
It's
Yeah,
still
there'll be
really
control
small.
burns,
It's still
like the federal
it's
government
still
does.
super small compared to
And it's pretty rural.
Miami,
It's not. Yeah,
but
yeah.
um, but yeah, Sebastian is real rural though. So we don't even have movie theaters or, you know, it's a fishing community. So I know I feel like okay, I'm pretty good here.
I feel like I could get out of here too if I had to. I mean, I don't think I'm locked into Fort Pierce because I'm a little bit north of it.
And we have a whole permaculture community, right? I could bike there or walk there if I had to, a couple miles away. I don't necessarily want to
From
give it
you,
away. Should I give it away? Didn't we go there once? On
the Kashi.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought about Kashi too.
You know, that's right near me, and they've
Right.
definitely they've got the moringa tree,
I
and
thought about that
they've
too.
got lots of moringa trees.
Do they?
Yeah, I helped plant some of them.
Okay.
I took a permaculture course there.
But they don't make enough food.
No, but at least there's people that are doing these skills, you know, making rain barrels and rain catchments, and that's what they're doing. They're having actually the permaculture convention there in
How's it work with?
September. They're
How's it
having it
work?
for the whole state there this September, next month.
I'm sorry, I'm talking over top of you. What are they doing?
Every year they have a permaculture convention, and permaculture is permanent agriculture, ways to heal the earth, you know, do things without
Right. Yeah, I studied it in London. Anyway,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm just saying it for the viewers.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
you studied in London, though? I didn't know that. So they have a convention once a year, and it's in different places, and sometimes I don't even think it's always in America. You know, I think it could be in other countries even. And this year, it's at Kashi in Sebastian next month.
Next month?
Yeah, so you might want to come here. Maybe we should go there. I mean, I'm sure they'd charge like a couple $100s. I don't know. I have to look at the schedule. But yeah, like so they're gonna just give. I mean, I've been there many times, and you know they do. We ate there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we
So,
were there, and
but they're doing that next month, so that would be just before this dollar crashes supposedly. So actually, that would be a great place if people did want to meet up here
I
in
thought about
Florida.
that. I thought about running
Come
to there.
to the permaculture convention. Maybe that would be a good place. So I'm putting that out there in Sebastian.
To look into that.
Yeah, look that up on the website. On, you know, wherever, Google it. Permaculture Convention, Kashi Ranch, Sebastian, Florida. September. Right. I'm pretty sure it's September. And, you know, it's not that they want to talk about any of this. I mean, they're doing things to heal the earth. They're definitely that generation that's healing the earth. They're not.
And healing themselves, though. I mean, they're healing themselves at the same time. They're vegetarians.
Yeah.
They spend their time raising their vibration through meditation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And lifestyle and choices.
And peace.
It's the difference between feeding the dark wolf or the white wolf inside your idea.
But when I talk about any of this stuff happening, like things crashing or Planet X, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to go there. So
it's negative stuff.
I'm just.
They want to live in the light.
It's exciting, though. You know, Planet X is the most exciting.
Most people, it's not exciting.
But they just changed the subject. They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it either. It's scary.
Because I'm like, yeah, I brought it up once, so I just get that. You know, that's not what they don't want to talk about it. But yet, that's going to be like, if there's other places doing what they're doing, so those are going to be like those pockets that are actually healing the earth, that the earth is benefiting from. That will be
like Andy's place in Arcadia.
Yeah.
They'll be doing whatever.
Yeah, so those are the places that they're already underway for healing.
Right. Yeah, Andy's amazing. I mean, I went to his thing again this year. It was good. Small. It was tiny. There wasn't much of a turnout. They had other festivals going on at the same time that I think drug people away from it. But, so to be part of Kashi, how's that work? I mean, you've got to be rich to go there.
No. Actually, they have these woofers, but they only hire or only allow like one or two to come and live there and work there. And they don't bring any money. They just work because they need workers. So, but then they get fed and they have a house there. But you can buy in though. You can buy property there. I mean, they are really the ultimate community, you know. I mean, yeah, I guess we'll have to turn our neighborhoods into talking to each other, you know, and
Yeah,
really.
that's the thing. Yeah.
And they do have that thing now. There's a neighborhood connection thing. I forget what it's called, but I joined mine, and somebody came up with this thing. I don't know. It's not an app because unless computers have apps, I don't really know this term. But I forget what it's called, but it's like a neighborhood thing where you enter who you are, where you live, and you can talk, and you're in this network with your neighborhood. And that was what it was designed for. And actually, again, that relies on the computer and electricity. But I mean, when we did have the hurricanes, you know, 10, 12 years ago, people did walk out their driveway and look around up and down the street and talk to each other, you know,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
great for a couple of weeks. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
you know, so
Then
that
they
could
went
happen
back
again.
inside. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was depressing when it went
Yeah.
away, really. And then I was like, well, we
I
can,
remember that. It was really cool. Everybody came
yeah,
out.
I
Everybody
know,
was,
helping each
working
other. Do you need
together.
anything? You know,
Yeah.
and we even ate over somebody's house. You know, we didn't have power or anything, and
Right.
we were taking our baths
Potlucks
in
and
the
yeah.
under the gutters because the rain was coming out, and washing our dishes that way. And then, you know, but when the electricity came back on, I was like, well, we could still pretend we don't have it. We could still use our candles, but it just didn't work. You know, it was like, it's back on. Why should we do this? But we tried. Me and my son tried to extend it a little longer.
Well, it's Florida. You want air conditioning
Oh
or a
yeah,
fan and internet access and
yeah,
I mean, electricity it's valuable. I mean, that's
yeah.
the
And
other
then you
thing
went,
I was thinking. If they come in, I mean, the idea, and I mentioned this before, but the idea of like free energy and things like that, that would, that wouldn't be harmful necessarily to the earth, and we wouldn't have to rape its resources and plunder and pollute it to
yeah,
do
and
it.
that's another thing. This is going to affect America first. This is not going to be worldwide. This is America is the first.
Why is that?
We're the target because we're called the Satan of the world. Like
Oh, what?
the world calls us the great Satan or whatever.
I think
We're,
the world calls us the great evil. We're the ones creating wars everywhere.
that's what I said, Satan. The great
Oh,
Satan.
Satan. Oh, I thought just saints.
No, no, no,
Satan.
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're the
Yeah,
bad guys,
yeah, I think
behind
we are.
everything.
Yeah.
So, so it's kind of like those places that are the most polluted or the most corrupt, have to go first. So America, it was also had its destiny in being, the spiritual land of diversity and all that. So it has both going on, but the corruption in America has to fall first, I think, in the domino series. So we're the experiment. We've always been the experiment. So I think, we're the ones going to get hit. We're the GMO experiment. Um, you know,
Right.
all the
Yeah.
other countries don't allow them in their country. They're all,
Right. Yeah. 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 The
so
land of the
yeah,
free.
we're getting hit. We're getting hit the most.
Yeah. That's interesting.
But I don't know if I
So,
answered this question about what other signs there would be, what other warnings. The only thing I'm going to say is I will be the warning giver because they'll tell me. That's all. That's what I got to go on is when they tell me the warnings before martial law. That's the only warning there's going to be, I think. And because this person lives in New York City and they need a warning to clear out of the city in time is what he's saying. And I would definitely be doing
good
that
luck
right
with that. Get out now.
Yeah, get out now.
You've overstayed.
Just at least find a place that you can say you're living in for the next 3 months, if possible. Like I was saying, paying the minimum on your credit card just for the next 3 months. Because I think if this is going to happen, it's going to be in the next 3, like before the election or just after the election. But I think it's before the election.
And then the hard part of it too is the weather. I mean, the weather is going to be getting colder. So people in New York, I mean, where's he go to Buffalo? I mean,
right.
It would be better to go south somewhere, I would think.
Except, yeah, we got the flooding going on. There's going to be chaos, I think, everywhere, but there's going to be pockets where it's just you've got high, like Kashi here, like, I mean, I'm not saying I don't know. I'll know after this trip. That's all I can tell you. I'll know after this trip. I'll know in September, I think.
Well, it'll be good. It'll be good to have a heads up because Kashi's interesting to me. I like the idea of that community. But,
yeah, I know. It's awesome. You know,
Yeah.
I tried to do a community garden there years ago. They wanted to interact more with the public, but then when I had it almost set up and ready to go, at the last minute they chickened out and were like, "Well, we don't really want the public here every single day, tromping around, just walking
Yeah.
around like."
And I don't blame them. It's
Yeah, I
not
know.
big enough really for that. You
Yeah, I
know.
know.
I mean, they need more land if they're going to do that.
Yeah,
And they're so close to central civilization that, you know.
really what's going to happen though is I could see that expanding out once this happens, where
Right. Yeah, that could expand out
just tries to copy what they're
that
doing.
model. Well, it's just like you said. If the neighbors start to work together,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
neighborhood becomes that whole thing. I mean, Cuba's a prime example, supposedly with
yeah.
permaculture. Anyway, after the, Russia's fell economically, they didn't have the support from Russia, so they had to do it on their own, and the government allowed them to. They brought up the old guys that were farmers, and they taught the young people who could actually do the work still,
Right.
and they created permaculture. Supposedly, Cuba's a huge success story in that sense, and they're just survivalists anyway. They still have the 1950 cars, and
Right.
that could be a place to go. They have free healthcare. You know,
Even Jamaica, they said when the hurricanes came, because so many of them don't really rely on power and they grow all their own food, they didn't even really notice anything about losing power. It didn't really affect them not having stores.
Jamaica scares me a bit. It's a bit dangerous,
No,
but
I
at
wouldn't want to
least
live there. I'm just talking about there are a lot of areas in the
pockets that'll
world
be.
that,
Yeah,
aren't heavily. But free energy is supposed to happen too, though. It's not that we're not going to have electricity. We are supposed to have electricity, but the Wi-Fi is very damaging. So something's got to change about that. I don't know how. There's got to be better ways to communicate and more sophisticated.
I always felt like if we're evolving, perhaps that stuff magically, because the internet came out of nowhere. Maybe it came on the scene. This is the clear conspiracy theorist thing, because we're evolving in a way that we will be able to communicate
Yes, it
telepathically.
definitely was needed, and even the World Wide Web
Yeah,
and the cloud. I believe the cloud is like computers came from alien technology that we would, they're the ones storing everything in the cloud is and monitoring everybody. The cloud, I believe, is them. That's where the cloud is to me.
so
But
you don't see it as Google, huh?
I think the cloud is going right up into spaceships. But I think the future better way to do things than Wi-Fi and this is, once we get our skills back, like telepathy and teletransportation, and
Right.
we'll just be able to think our thoughts and
Then we don't need all this
yeah, we
stuff.
won't need wires and
Right.
wireless.
Right. Yeah.
And supposedly that's what's coming. I mean, it'd be awesome if it was like this time
Well, that's
around.
what it would be fun to be able to survive it, to see
Oh
that.
yeah, well, and that's another thing. They say we're here because we wanted to be here for this. Like we, in our life plan, we chose to be here for this. But some people chose to die just before it happens. Some people chose to die during when it happens, and some people chose to live after. But this is like people's life plans. Like the moment they're gonna die has been planned.
Whatever their contract was when they came
Yeah,
in.
they planned, how long do I want to stay? Do I want to go through this? Do I want to see it? Do I want to be part of it? So that's another thing. You can rest assured that you decided what you wanted to do ahead of time.
Had I known. The best laid plans, right? Anyway.
Yeah. So like I said, that's the only thing I can say. And to increase my frequency, he says, I've been meditating, I'm a vegan, I'm detoxing my body of fluoride and mercury, which is good for the pineal gland. That's another thing essential oils are good for, because that's our little antenna. That's how we're going to be able to communicate, those ways, is clear off all that fluoride and calcium, which, we're turning back into crystallized DNA and crystallized endocrine system. So, yeah, I mean, what else? There's another page here. Oh, increasing frequency. And having a bike, I think, is very good. If you have a bike, a tire repair kit. You know, at least you have some way to get around until your tires blew out. Um, and then they say, you know, about worrying about, like, let's say you're eating better or you're higher vibration, you know, based on having a conversation like this. That's a big clue. Being able to follow a conversation like this and not immediately going, oh, that's garbage, that's nonsense, you know, that shows you're in the fourth, fifth dimension. You're thinking, your thoughts are there. So, when people say, well, should I worry about my family surviving, you know, or not ascending, you know, whatever that means, um, they say everybody is already got their path planned and not to worry, and they'll all be in the right place at the right time and going to the right place they're supposed to be at the right level for them. But I also know we're going to get a boost. So, you know, with the photon belt, that's, you know, we're in the photon belt, and waves of high vibrating frequency light is bathing the planet in, you know, all the time. And so we're getting woken up, you know, with each passing wave. So, and when they come, just seeing them is going to like bolt people wide awake, you know, when this all happens. When the planet, you know, we're just living so naively and don't want to hear anything, you know. People do not want to know about this. But when we see it, when the planet is here, in the midst of the crashing dollar and martial law,
and soldiers shooting each other.
yeah, so, you know, they won't know that, no, this is the good guys coming, you know. That's why they need their introduction. But that's where the crazy chaos is going to be. But there's lots of people, though, that, you know, have been holding the peace, know something is coming, the event. You know, everybody talks about the event. You know, this is the event. So, you know, we know to stay calm, and just holding that peace is what's going to calm others, you know, radiating out from you like a little ripple pond. And that's that's our main job, is to hold the calmness and the peace. That is our main job. Being calm, having faith that, you know, we'll get the right communication, we'll know what to do. And that, and raising your frequency allows you to get more communication, by the way. That's a huge, big deal. They will start communicating with other people, not just me. You know, if you're open to it, if you understand that the possibility exists, and you know, we all have that still small voice inside that will get louder and louder if you start listening to your intuition that tells you to go left instead of right, but it makes no sense and you have no explanation, but something is going, no, really, go left, turn now, you know. That's what you got to follow, instead of overriding it and saying, no, that makes no sense, I'm not doing it. You have to override that and go with it.
Yeah, not an easy thing to do, but yeah, I know what you're talking
about. That's going to be them. That's going to be them. And they do communicate with song lyrics. So if a song pops in your head out of nowhere, or you wake up with a song in your head and you're not even really thinking anything of it, start thinking of it, going, what are you saying, you know, and listen to the whatever.
I get that all the time. I get song lyrics all the time. I have for years.
That is a huge way they communicate. So just start.
I always thought it was an annoying piece of my ego.
I mean,
because usually it's a piece of songs, a song, and it'll just play over.
That's what I mean.
Until I start to analyze it and say, okay, what's it saying?
Yeah.
And then it goes away.
That's how they do it.
So,
you know, there's a lot of times I'll have a song pop into my head, and I turn on the radio, and this has happened since the 90s when this began, and that exact sentence comes out of the radio right where it is in my head. Like, you know, exactly the same. That happens all the time for me. So, that is definitely how they easily communicate with people.
I just had an interesting, I woke up from a dream the other day, and it was a song that ABBA did, and the song was I Have a Dream, and it talks about angels and all that, and I guess I knew of the song, and I think I'd heard it on the radio a few days before that, but I woke up in this dream, I was this beam of light, and it was infinite, and it was an unbelievable experience, and I was in the whole thing for a long time, and then finally came back to this thing, and there was no fear, there was no doubt, I mean, you're in that infinite place, you know, and then you come back to this, and you're just like, okay, there's nothing to be afraid of here, because I'm that, not this. It's that whole idea of, which is real, the dream or this. And, I guess both of them in a
So
sense.
was that a dream, or you're saying, or you were awake?
It was I was waking from a
Oh,
dream.
okay.
So I was in still that dream
Yeah, yeah.
state.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, yeah, it's somewhere crossing over the veil coming back, I guess.
Okay.
And, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's another thing. I referred to that movie Avatar, and you know how did you see that movie?
How
Avatar.
what?
Avatar.
Yeah.
Did you see
Yeah,
that?
I saw it.
You know, when that guy, I forget his name, Jake, goes and lays down in that
Right.
thing, and
Thing, and
then
he becomes the avatar through
yeah,
that.
and so I know at least I'm pretty sure, for me, that's how it is. Like, that's my self up there on that planet, and this is just that extension of consciousness. And I'm sure it's not just true for me, though. And so when we
Right.
reunite, they're saying those are our light bodies that are going to reunite with us, which is our higher self light body. But, because there was a point in the movie where, he was able to meet them in his other body, but, it was reversed where he was the small one. They're going to be the big tall ones, and we're going to be the small ones.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another thing that, might blow people's minds.
How big they are, I mean?
Yeah, it's like those, like the Earth Island people, or those Egyptians where they're sitting in their chairs and they're just so massively tall. Those are like life size.
Yeah, I know which ones you're talking about, yeah. The Valley, not the Valley of the Gods. What was it called?
Esther? Was it Queen Esther?
No,
Oh, the Easter Island?
well, Easter Island's one, but the
What's
Egyptian
funny about
thing,
Easter Island, though? All this time we thought it was just the heads.
I know, right? And
Finally
they're
undug and
underground.
saw there's a whole body there.
That just speaks to, how short-sighted you can be,
Yeah, we had little heads in our fish tanks and stuff. It was just their heads.
Yeah, it's just the heads and the bodies are buried.
But
It makes sense. What holds up the head,
Yeah, and something happened, though, to bury their bodies.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. An event happened that
Right.
mud came in and buried them. So
So the whole idea of Easter Island losing all its vegetation, you think that could not be the case, that whoever was the inhabitants of Easter Island didn't kill off all their vegetation and therefore all their food? Because that's what the lesson is. It's always, well, the people of Easter Island, they just, basically ran themselves into the ground, literally, because of the
yeah.
But at the same time, if there was a cataclysmic event,
Yeah.
it could be like Pompeii, where the
exactly, mudslides.
volcano thing, and then they all get swallowed up.
Yeah, something happened to bury those bodies.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, land masses are supposed to rise, like Atlantis, which is right next to Florida, is supposed to rise up, too. So that's another thing. The plates are supposed to shift. We just don't know. But
So that could flood Florida as well. That would create a
like a little bit.
sense.
I also did have a dream that if I was able to just hold on to a part of my property in Florida, which I don't know if it means literally this one, but something near the spine is what I'm thinking, near those springs. Then after the thing, because the water will recede, I was shown in my dream, and if you could actually hang on and last there, you would be on prime real estate, was my dream. It was like a lot of people are automatically going to go, but if you can stay, like in other words, be a squatter on someone else's land by those springs, you got prime real estate.
Happened in Louisiana when you think about it. After the flood, a lot of people bought up whatever receded, and now it's more valuable. Doesn't take much.
That's what they showed me about Florida. It would go underwater, but if everything was connected somehow to this one spoke, it was kind of like a wheel I was shown, a spoke, that the water would recede and I would be on prime real estate. So I think.
So the spine of it is.
Yeah, the spine is pretty safe. Yeah, definitely. Nobody.
And what do you consider the spine?
The spine is Mount Dora, and then if you look at a map, you can see elevation, but it's like basically I think Mount Dora, Gainesville. Around Gainesville is where it starts and goes north. Just
Okay.
along the center.
It's
There's
funny, the
like,
people that I just spent time with this week, they were from up there. It was a birthday party thing, and they've got a house in Gainesville, and somewhere around Mount Dora they have a place, and the place in Mount Dora is where they're talking about running to for, when all hell breaks loose, because they think Gainesville's too close, it's too much of a city. That so yeah, it's interesting. So they may be on the right track.
yeah. But the springs are definitely an advantage to be, and the springs are all up there. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's pretty country anyway.
It is.
I love Mount Dora.
Yeah.
It's a cute little Victorian town.
Yeah, absolutely. And hills.
Yeah, with hills, go figure. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Actually, all the way to Rainbow Springs, the highway is like up and down.
Is
Like,
it?
yeah, there's rolling hills. That's in Denellen. We went tubing there twice this summer. It was awesome on the Spring River, Rainbow Springs River. They have tubing there. You could do 2 or 4 hours.
Oh, really?
It's the most gorgeous water. Like no salts, no brackish water, just pure spring water.
I was just up at Silver Springs, and
yeah, we were there too. That's right near it. It's right near it.
Is it? Yeah, that was in what town's that? No, Acadia. It's Ocala, right?
Yeah.
Ocala.
Yeah, it's 20 miles. Rainbow Springs is 20 miles from Ocala. So yeah, Ocala is definitely part of the spine.
It's prime spot as well. So that whole area.
Yeah.
It's all horse country up there. Yeah.
I looked up there to buy land like 10 years ago. Like I was looking for 5 acres, and I knew I needed to be near the springs, and it is beautiful up there. It just didn't work out then, but
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking. I was trying to move then, but maybe now, it would be free. You wouldn't have to buy it.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to just squat it. Yeah.
Yeah, just when everyone else leaves, you just
Show up,
there.
and when everybody runs out of the state,
Yeah.
you'd be there. But you have to pay taxes a couple years to be able to take possession.
No, this is when the whole system changes though, and we don't have money
so
anymore.
his laws will get right out the window. Okay.
Yeah, so instead of driving up 95 or trying to get out of the state, just drive over to Ocala, Denellen, and try to get near the springs. Like there are all these houses living right on the springs that I was like, wow, they have the ultimate location.
Yeah. It is pretty. I mean, and the springs are huge. I mean, they're great big, springs are pumping out gallons and gallons.
Yeah.
Such beautiful water.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And that was
and there's fish in there too. You could eat
there's fish, there's gators, there's birds. And that was a waterway that goes up to Jacksonville. That waterway feeds into other waterways. It used to be a way for commerce to travel down through the state.
Well, Florida itself in the old days was part of Africa. We were that little chunk that's on the side of Africa, that indent. So we have the same like flora and fauna and limestone base.
It looks like Africa. I was in Kenya years ago, and the topography is the same. I mean, when you're driving down the road if you're crossing the state on.
Wow.
And it's really very similar to Africa.
Yeah,
the way
we joined the United States. Florida came over and joined the United States. It was part of Africa.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Like you could see on Africa, the big side, there's a little indent there that matches Florida.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And that's another thing. Have you heard of the Keshe Foundation? Keshe. It's this Iranian guy, a nuclear physicist, scientist person. He's actually predicting that South America is going to split off of the Panama Canal right there is going to split, and South America is going to go drift like Australia and be an island. He's predicting that for this fall. He's predicting that before December.
What's it? K-E-S-E?
Keshe.
I
have I can try to find. I sent that email to a bunch of people with the YouTube link, and I'll find it for you and I'll send it to you. But he didn't talk about Planet X. He didn't talk about. But you have to think. Okay, well, what would cause that? Like a lot of people talk about global warming happening and all this stuff. Or, oh, it's because the sun is heating up, they say. Okay, but what's heating up the sun? You have to go to the next level. So
Right.
he's saying the Panama Canal area has been just this, like, he equates it to like a piece of metal or a branch that you're just constantly, with the tectonic plate movement, making it go back and forth and weakening, because you're going back and forth with the earth.
When they dredge it out or something, or
Well, so he's saying eventually it's just going to snap because it's so weakened from the plates just pulling it, pushing it, pulling it, pushing it, that he's saying it's going to happen this fall. He's saying that. And he even went all the way through, proving it with volcanic activity, and he went along and told how it was going to affect every country. And he's coming from Iran speaking about this, and he's saying everybody who went to the United States originally to live from their other countries, they're all going to be trying to go back to their countries of origin. He said, but I don't want them coming over here. He's like, should we let them come over, or should we just let nature take its course? He's like, I think we should just let nature take its course. They're trying to figure out, the United States is going to be fleeing.
Water finds its own level.
The United States, and he's kind of saying, I don't know.
What about the pole shifts? I mean, I've heard things about that's a more of a eminent danger.
With the Planet X again. All this is because of Planet X, the pull and the magnetic pull, and
So what's the take on all that? What do you mean it has to do with the Planet X?
Well, first of all, there's a couple of things with the poles shifting. That just means the magnetic north and south are going to switch places, which they've already started doing. They not as a solid mass, but as broken up parts. They've already started making that happen. And then we would just have it like a different in climate, like what was tropical, might not be on the equator anymore. The equator is supposed to move, in other words. And again, that's just and they're saying how the axis is tilted is even because of Planet X, from another time it passed by. So maybe we'd be straightened back.
So it has to do with its passing or with its coming toward us.
Absolutely.
It's like the moon has the effect on our tides.
Oh yeah, this planet is 5 to 7 times bigger than Earth. So it's pulling,
it's going to have a pull.
It's going to pull land masses, glaciers.
And that would just be the physics of it alone would just do that.
Yes. Just the magnetic pull and the heating up and all the friction. That's why all the planets in the solar system are heating up, because of the friction of the space, like being pressed, that it's all from Planet X and the other planets. And then there's the debris field. But, I'm just saying I'm not in the least bit worried. That's all. The bottom line is I'm super excited for this, and I'd be so disappointed if nothing happened, which is still an option. There's still a possibility nothing's going to happen. But if it doesn't happen this year, which it just seems like the elections are a huge pivotal moment, with that timeline. That if it didn't though, then next year, I guess. But it would be awful to have to go through this again for another year.
Well, you prepare more.
Yeah, I know. I just mean like the build up. You're expecting it this year, and then yeah, fine, okay.
There are religions that do that every year. They say the world's coming to an end, tomorrow, and
I mean,
tomorrow never gets here.
I know. I hate all that. I
was the next day,
Yeah, telling them I don't even want to hear it. I don't believe it. When it comes, it comes. Like, don't even bother telling me.
And like you said, in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter anyway. I mean, if we are truly just light beings, then
But that's what my attitude was like a year ago or something. Like, I'm just not even I can't, like, even just as recently as March, I think I did or May it was. I did the Earth Changes Special Report Update, or what Special Earth Changes Report Update 2016. I was just putting all these things out that were happening, as a phenomenon in the first quarter of this year, with the geographics of volcanoes, earthquakes, and what the military was doing. They're all moving their bases, inwards. Like the Federal Reserve Bank of New York has moved to Chicago, and they're from there. That's their name, is of New York, and now they're in Chicago. So, why did they move away from the coast?
What did they move? Who?
The whole bank.
What bank? Bank of New York, you said?
No, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
They moved it from New York to Chicago?
Yes.
But there was already one in Chicago. They just...
And the military has moved a lot of its operations to Colorado. Everybody, the Navy, they're all moving away from the coastlines and inward. Go if you watch that, you'll see it all on there. I have it all easy.
Well, even Miami, I heard, Miami's budgeted for raising their roads, X amount of feet. I'm like, how the hell is Miami going to raise their roads? I mean, how's that work?
They did that with Chicago in the late 1800s because all the sewage was, at the time they all had horses. There's 200,000 horses with all their dumpings everywhere, and it was just polluting the city so bad, and they were trying to shovel it off into the lake that was right there. But it was very time-consuming and laborious, so they raised the city.
That's right. I remember seeing a documentary on that. As you say, I remember that.
They used
they raised the buildings too, or something.
The buildings,
they jacked up the buildings
hotels with people in them with jacks and.
Yeah.
And they elevated it so that the runoff would go right into the lakes from the horses.
That's why they did it.
Yes, that's why they did it.
That's so funny.
So,
yeah, I guess they do the same thing.
And New Orleans really is a city that needs to do that worse than Miami.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. So, yeah, so I guess we could just go with that for today, and then pick this back up. Yeah, we could pick this back up after, if I feel like I have something significant different after this trip. If they come back with, okay, here's the plan, and this is how it's going to go down, I'll come back and say, let's do another one.
So why is it they don't do that? Is it because of the free will thing, or what? I mean, why don't they? I mean, why do they tell you some stuff and not all stuff? And what?
They say it's like a need to know, and if they tell you too many steps ahead, then it's kind of like, let's say you had a big job to do, this happens a lot, cleaning your house or just whatever, some project you're working on. If you were always trying to figure out too many things at once instead of, all the details, that you just working on a small patch of it at a time and then get that done and then work on the next thing and get that done. It just is less mental wear on you, I guess, and you might change things if you knew too much. You might make your own decisions.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty much like bowling with those guardrails up, you can only make too many mistakes.
The only way I bowl, though. I mean,
They want you to stay in the lane, so, they only tell you on a need-to-know basis.
Yeah.
But, and then so I look around, though. I look at what other people okay, who's got a new Planet X sighting? But now I don't want to look for a while, because a couple weeks, we need to have some time go by before things will be able to update. But I'll send you that Kesh thing, though. That was really interesting.
All right, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, you would love that.
All right, so when do you leave for your trip?
I'll put the link with this YouTube for other people watching. I'll find that link. But again, he doesn't mention Planet X, but the whole time I'm like, okay, well, of course, this is what would cause this. This is what's causing all the volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. Everything is because of this planet.
And how is the planet causing the eruptions of volcanoes?
I don't mean normal ones, but the fact that the Ring of Fire is 3 times more active, and by now it's probably 4 or 5 times. And Yellowstone, is now constantly going off, like the Old Faithful, used to go off religiously every whatever it was, a half hour, whatever. Now it's all the time spewing. And
is it? I didn't realize that.
Yes, my mother's going out there actually next week. Yeah, the roads are melting over there. They've got the springs. There's a river, the Shoshone River, right near there is boiling. It's and of course the San Andreas Fault. They put that out in the paper a couple months ago that it's locked, loaded, and ready to go. Everywhere else along the Ring of Fire is having huge, enormous activity. And we're not having any. So we're so overdue. And Yellowstone, of course, is a super volcano. So, but I don't know. I have a psychic friend in Colorado on that one YouTube, the Earth Changes Report one. She says she's not getting anything about moving out of the state. And they are moving all their bases to Colorado, the military and the government stuff. So I don't know, you know.
Well, they did that whole thing, like you were talking about the underground cities and everything. Supposedly, under the airport in Colorado, they built a whole big city, and that's going to be the major
That's
hub.
what I
And
think.
the elevation's really high of Colorado anyway.
Yeah,
That's a
somebody said,
mile high or something.
yeah, maybe that, you know, there would be some eruptions from Yellowstone, but like several of them, but not the one giant one. Maybe the pressure would be released, like all along the caldera there, and it would release the pressure enough so that it didn't have to have a gigantic one. I think, you know, that's what. But this Kesh guy, he says, he does talk about Yellowstone. So I'll show you his thing. I'll
All
send you
right.
that link. I'll post that at the bottom of this thing too for
All
others.
right. Cool.
And the Earth Changes Report, you should watch that one too. Just look under my name, and it's called Special Earth Changes Report Update 2016. And I just quickly go through all the things, and that was in May. So, you know, but after this trip, I'll see if I get anything new. But even if it's not in August, I expect in September, you know, we'll be talking again, maybe like this, but definitely you should come to the. Well, I'll see how much the cost is, you know, for the
Yeah, it'd be
permaculture.
good to know. I wouldn't mind going to
I
the
bet we'd
permaculture.
make a lot of contacts, you know.
Yeah.
If anyone else watching wants to come to Florida
Yeah. The
for the
permaculture.
permaculture convention, yeah.
We've got permaculture buddies still in England that, I mean, they're not going to fly over for that,
Yeah,
but there are people that do. I mean,
I
I
know. That's
think
what I
they had
mean.
one.
It was on some island before.
Yeah, it was some island last year off of Mexico, wasn't it? Or a couple of years ago?
I don't.
Because I
Yeah. I
thought
just
about going to it, and
right,
I didn't go.
right. So
But
you're certified in permaculture?
no,
Oh.
no, I only took a beginning course,
Oh, okay.
but no, it was good stuff though.
Yeah. It's
There's a lot
it's
to
very
there's a
earthy
lot to
stuff.
know.
Yeah.
What's that?
Very earthy stuff.
Yeah, it's
It's
real earthy.
reconnecting with the earth.
Yeah, it's very connecting. The people that do it are pretty spiritual
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
an earth sense.
Yeah,
So
very, yeah, into the real healthy eating and making everything out of wild edibles or food they can grow, you know. Yeah.
it's a whole different mindset. I mean, I went to they have that. Well, I mean, there's places all over, but there was one in Tennessee called the Farm that was developed, and it's not much of a permaculture thing, but it was kind of like an eco village at one point after the I think the '60s. There was a professor in Berkeley that was probably preaching all this stuff back then. So they all, he had such a following. They got it in buses, and they drove from California to east to find a place, and they ended up in this little town in Tennessee, and they started this place they called the Farm, and they were doing all kinds of really cool stuff for people, and they were kind of overstretched with it, and things run amok after a while, and so it's splintered up and it's fallen apart to some degree. But there's a fraction of it that's still there, and they do a bit of earth building stuff and some permaculture classes. They work with a little bit of energy things and things. It's still
Yeah, you know, even if we don't do like the thing where I don't need to go through the whole coursework that they're going to do at this convention, but maybe we could still just meet there and eat there, you know, and have there's other people in our area, like maybe we could just have a meeting during it.
Yeah, it would be good to connect with everybody who's into that.
Yeah, like at least I know they'll have a free first night thing, you know.
Right.
So
it's an actual course, or is it just what is
it's like
it?
a week long of workshops and stuff.
It's a workshop course. It's a course. It's probably a certified course then.
Yeah, probably. I guess
they're
so.
$900.
No, I know. I paid more than that. It was no, I don't think it's that. I think it's only like 200 or 300. So I don't think it's a course. I think it's a bunch of workshops and speakers.
Okay, all right.
But we don't have to do the whole thing. Maybe you can even just pay for the ones you want. But I'm just saying we could meet there and be on the fringes.
And just
I went there and did the course there, so I should be allowed to come back.
Yeah.
Without too much, I've taught classes there. I've taught the wild edible walks a couple times there, and
and it's not like they have German shepherds.
My son went to school there when he was 2, even. Last year they had a school.
They're pretty open.
But yeah, so as far as this other guy, he has a question: how do I find eco or off-the-grid communities that will be open to others that may allow me to join? I looked online, but maybe I haven't searched hard enough because I can't find one near New York City. But really, I would say you kind of get away from New York City. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of them up there. I mean,
upstate New York.
well, I mean, there's a
There's a
website.
thing though called the Woofers program, WOOFERS, and at least they would tell you where those things were. Even if you couldn't be a woofer, you would know where the CSAs were.
But even beyond that, you can type in something like ecovillage.com or something, and they have a list of eco villages around the world.
Oh.
And something like that he could find.
Yeah, and actually we're going to have to just become those everywhere, you know, so it's going to be like, I hope you like your neighbors, and, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the preparations would be to have a block party in your neighborhood, but I don't know. It depends. I don't know. We'll see what the instructions are. I don't know. So, and then, what else does he say? And then people could post under this YouTube, you know, where you live, if people wanted to try to find each other. But, yeah, so I'm just saying when I get more, I'm sure in September I'll be putting something up again, if not before that. But otherwise, come to the permaculture convention.
Yeah, right. Before the dollar crashes.
Yes, before the dollar crashes on September 27th. I'm not saying that, but a lot of other people are. You can just Google that on YouTube. You'll see there's
That's funny. I heard that about a year ago. Some woman was adamant it was going to crash in like a week or something. She goes, "This date, it's going to happen," and everything.
I know. These dates come and go. I absolutely know that.
You know,
this whole thing could just come and go.
And the whole market's staying up at over 18,000. I just shake my head. I'm going, what is holding it up? You know. But
right. Yeah, that's what they say. We've never recovered from 2008. We've just pretended we have. They've just hid all the debt and just added more invisible money that doesn't really exist.
It's just invisible money. And, well, that's what, you know, the one thing that Ron Paul made a statement. He said, you know, if they had taxed everybody, you know, instead of just printing money, they taxed you instead of that, people would be up in arms, you know.
Oh, right.
Because nobody wants to pay the tax. But meanwhile, they put, $40,000 per person on every head in America, you know? So there's the tax. It's just hidden. And you see it in the inflation of food and you know, everything pretty much. I mean, gasoline stays low. But, so, yeah, and like you said, inflation's the big, I mean, the Arabs have talked about that, the evils of interest before. I mean, I think that's one of the major reasons we're always fighting them, because they don't believe in that concept, and/or supposedly the Federal Reserve, the world banks that are everywhere. You know, that's the whole reason we're supposedly not only what you said with Baghdad, but just across the Middle East in general, we're trying to set up Federal Reserve banks. Essentially, is what I've heard. In addition to all the other conspiracy theory rhetoric. So we're over there stealing the opium, we're stealing the oil, we're getting the portals, you know, whatever we're doing, you know.
Right. But America, I do believe,
got to be a reason, you know.
Yeah, I believe we are the worst in the world.
Yes.
You know, that we might have come from other places like the Rothschilds or whatever, but come from the Roman Empire or whatever, but you know, it's still concentrated in the United States, those corrupt, most highly corrupt people. And
yeah, there's certainly plenty of them here and everywhere.
They're saying like the Afghanistan war is all about the cocaine, you know, business, right, with the poppies plants, and that's the whole big, and that we're moving heroin in, you know, with every shipment of gold or whatever, it comes together. They're wrapped just like gold bars. The heroin, you know, is what's supporting our government, heroin, and everyone's getting addicted to heroin, you know, so that's another way to short circuit people so that they just crash and burn when they're addicted and they just can't, there's no more supply.
Right.
They get all these young people addicted to heroin, there won't be anybody to fight them, or, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you got to be aware of what you're addicted to, even conspiracy theories.
All right, yeah, so plan on September. I'll send you the links, and we'll go for after this trip and see what I get. I'm definitely expecting something, and we'll see.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, bye.
Good to talk to you.
Yeah,
Take care.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye. See ya.